Hello, everyone, and welcome to this 4.5 hour edition of Open Source Intelligence, or OSINT, Fundamentals. My name is Heath Adams, and I'm going to be your instructor for this course. A really quick who am I? I'm a husband, hacker, teacher, gamer, sports fan, and owner of way too many animals. I'm the business owner and CEO at TCM Security. We are a cybersecurity consulting firm and educational resource. So we do anything from cybersecurity consulting, risk assessments, and ethical hacking. Really, companies pay us to attempt to break into their networks or attempt to break into their devices or buildings. You name it, we'll try to break into it. On the other side of that, we educate users on how to become ethical hackers and a lot of the different things that we do in this industry. We've taught over 200,000 students at this point, and the number seems to be growing every day. If you're interested in following me on social media, here are the links. I'm very approachable. You can come check me out on LinkedIn or Twitter, Twitch, or even here on YouTube. We have a ton of great ethical hacking and cybersecurity content, so please do hit that like button, subscribe, comment down below. We have full courses similar to what you're watching here today on ethical hacking and other related materials, so please do give those a look as well. If you're interested in learning more about TCM Security, we have the business side, which is tcm-sec.com, the educational side, which is the academy, and the certification side is the certifications. And now on to the course curriculum. So this is going to be the first 4.5 hours of a 9-hour course called Open Source Intelligence Fundamentals. Looking at the curriculum, we're going to cover what is open source intelligence. We'll talk briefly about note keeping, and we'll talk about the creation of sock puppets. And then we'll start getting into some of the fun stuff. We're going to talk about all different types of open source intelligence and how we can gather information through various methods. So we'll look at search engine OSINT and see what kind of information we can gather through search engines. And then we'll look at image OSINT and talk about reverse image searching and looking at EXIF data and identifying physical locations based on an image, which is really fun to do. We'll talk about email OSINT and how we can identify email addresses based on certain factors. We'll look at password OSINT and talk about breached databases. We're going to look at username OSINT and how we can tie a username from one location to perhaps another location or another website or resource, and what tools are available for us to do that. We'll talk about people OSINT. How can we search for people? How can we look for phone numbers and birth dates and resumes and voter records? And then lastly, we'll talk about looking through social media. So we're going to talk about different types of social media that are out there: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. That is where the course is going to stop. Now, the second half of the course does cover website OSINT, business OSINT, wireless OSINT, and then we build out a lab. So we actually use Linux and we'll go into a lab and we start working with tools to do a lot of this process and automate a lot of the process that you've seen before. And then we'll build out actual scripting and automation to automate even more of the process. We'll talk about different OSINT frameworks. We'll talk about report writing. We'll have a course challenge where you are challenged to identify different various items through open source intelligence. And then we'll even provide more resources after that. Now, this is the only point during this whole video I'm going to try to sell you on anything. The first 4.5 hours of this course is free. If you're interested in paying for the full course and getting the second 4.5 hours, you're welcome to do so. The price of this course is $29.99. I will link in the description a link to the Academy again. And just a little bit else about us is we do have tons of other courses. We have courses on ethical hacking, escalation, pen testing, Python 101. We've got Linux 101 courses for people who are more beginner, courses on phishing and malware analysis and mobile application penetration testing. And we're adding new content monthly. So we have new courses all the time. Our courses are highly rated, our authors are well vetted, and we provide high quality content for no more than $30 a course. Or if you're interested, we also offer courses at a discount through bundling, and we offer courses through an all access pass where you can access all of our courses for $30 a month. So with that being said, that's the only time I'm going to pitch you throughout this entire video. We're going to go ahead and move on now to the Open Source Intelligence Fundamentals course. So before we start learning about OSINT, I must make an important disclaimer. This course is going to teach you some incredibly powerful techniques on finding information on individuals, on organizations, and just as a whole. This information that you gather and these techniques that you gather should be used from an ethical standpoint. At no point should you be researching anybody with malicious intent or be using this information for any other reason than you have been told or have a contract to do so. So, unless you are a part of an investigation or in part of a client that has told you, I want you to research us or a person in particular, this information that you learn should only be used against yourself for the time being. With that being said, I want to make sure that you understand again, this is a fundamentals course. This is something that is going to teach you, I would say, 70 to 80% of the techniques that can be used. You can absolutely go more thorough. You can absolutely take this deeper, build out your own tools, and take a lot of techniques and apply them in other places. This is a methodology based course. I'm going to, again, teach you the methods, and that's what I want you to take away from this. Make sure you're understanding that the methods here are what's important. The tools come and go. Websites go away all the time. Tools break, they just don't work anymore. The methods do not change significantly. Okay, so make sure you understand that. Make sure that you're using this in an ethical manner. This is very, very dangerous. Potentially, that you can use this can be weaponized. This is something that the good guys use and the bad guys use. And I'm putting this course out there for the good guys. So make sure that you are using this ethically. Make sure you're understanding the methodologies you go through this. And make sure that you're not only respecting your own privacy, but the privacy of other individuals. So, with that being said, I'm really ready to start into the course. I'm excited. Let's go ahead and get this done. We're going to go ahead and start talking about what is OSINT in the next video. I'll see you over there. Welcome to the first real video in this course, and it's just going to be a brief introduction. We've already talked about this in the course introduction, but I do want to add in an intelligence life cycle into the conversation so that you understand what this is. So again, what is OSINT? OSINT is open source intelligence. So we're going to be using a multitude of methodologies in this course in order to gather information on people, on businesses, and other items that is all publicly available. This is all public information. Okay, so this is open source to us. So with that being said, and I've already talked about this, I really want to talk about the intelligence lifecycle just for a minute. So when we talk about the intelligence lifecycle, there are 5 parts to the intelligence lifecycle. Now there's planning and direction. So those are your who, what, when, where, why type deal. So let's say that somebody has instructed you to gather information. Maybe you have signed a client and the client says, I want you to gather as much information about us that you can. And you say, okay, we'll do that. So then you start doing your planning. Who are we going to target? What are we going to target? Why are we going to target them? When are we going to do it? These are all identified in the planning and direction phase. Once you have identified and your target, you've done your planning, you're ready to move on, then you go into the collection phase. And majority of this course is about collection. That is the methodology that we're going to be doing. How do we gather image information, or how do we gather data from an image? What can we tell about an image? How do we gather the image itself? How do we gather names from an organization or people that work at an organization? Or how do we gather information about people? This is all collection. So the majority of our time in this course is going to be spent in the collection phase of the intelligence lifecycle. From there, we're going to move on to processing and exploitation. We're not going to do any exploitation or really any processing. Processing is about taking the data that you gathered and starting to interpret it. You're starting to process the data, okay? That moves into analysis and production, which is similar in the sense that you're analyzing the data,
and you're putting it into, I guess, an intellectual form. You're starting to take all the data points that you've gathered and you processed, and you're saying, hey, this data point ties to this data point that ties to this data point, and this is why. Okay. And then you produce a report, you produce some sort of document, you provide that, and you put that into the last phase, which is dissemination, and you present that to your client or your customer, whoever it may be that requested the information, and you make sure that they can understand it. So from the get go, this is a never ending life cycle, okay? And this doesn't have to be done in a specific order. You can start doing your planning, right? And then when you get into the collection phase, you might realize, okay, I'm starting to gather some data, but I don't know what to do with it. Go back to planning and add more stuff in, right? Do more planning, go back to collection. Or you could be processing the data and analyzing the data as you're collecting it. And then going back and collecting more data to provide more evidence for what you're collecting. So this life cycle is always ongoing. I just want you to understand that this life cycle exists. This is one of the core things I think that are taught in most intelligence type courses, and we're briefly going over it. I feel like you could do an entire course on this. I just want you to understand that in this course, we are primarily going to be on the collection phase. We're going to do a challenge that gathers some information, and we'll analyze some of the information, and then we will put that into a report and understand what a report looks like. But we're not going through the full life cycle in a true sense. We're going to work more on collection phases. But I want you to be aware that the life cycle exists and that it's super important for the intelligence field. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead now and move on to the note-taking part of our course. Before we can start diving into the meat of this course, I want to make sure we talk about taking effective notes. There are a lot of different note keeping tools that are out there, and I kind of want to show you some of the favorites that I have, show you a little bit about how I take notes, and just give you an idea of how you should be working through this course and taking notes, and even with your OSINT and when you're doing OSINT on somebody else, how you should be taking those notes as well. So the first thing I want to point out is I'm going to show you my notebooks, and then we'll kind of get into tools. So here's one notebook that I've used. If you've ever taken a course with me, you've probably seen me point this out, and this is called Keep Note. Now, Keep Note is quite old. I think it's 7 or 8 years old since the last time it's been updated. So there is a little bit of dating to this, but it's still very effective. I like using it, and it's just very, very simple. So you can see here, at one point I was studying, and I have group notes in here for different things, but I was studying for CyberArk and I was studying for Thycotic, which are different privilege access management tools. And I was taking notes on these. So I was watching some videos, and there were different things for these different potential exams or courses that I was doing for CyberArk, and they had different sections. So what I like to do is I like to come in here and say, okay, here's this exam I'm taking. So you could see a CSP, and then they have different subtopics. And in those subtopics, you can have, see, I just numbered them 1, 2, 3, whatever. But you can also come in here and just create a node. So say there's a subtopic of a subtopic. You can also come in here and just create a new child page and have a subtopic here. And you can just say something like subtopic, right? And this is great. So what I come in here and say is I'll take maybe screenshots of something that was interesting, like a slide. I might put some notes in here for myself. And I'm not going to come in here and tell you exactly how to take notes. I'm coming in here and telling you how I take notes and giving you ideas. If there's something that works better for you, if you're not visual, I'm very visual. So I like to see, instead of typing this all out, I like to see kind of a picture of everything. So you'll see me take a lot of screenshots and pictures of different tools and then put them into my notes, because that's how I remember things. Unless it's something that specifically I want to copy and paste. And I'll kind of show you that as well. But it's good to have good notes, organized, easy to click on. If I want to know something about DevOps, I just come in here and click on it and read more about the CyberArk DevOps. Now, this is Keep Note. Keep Note is fantastic, but I understand people don't want to use an outdated tool, or they're not on Windows or something else. So, oops, I just pulled it up and then clicked off of it. So maybe you want to use something different. This tool is called Notion. Now, Notion is a little bit different from a note-taking perspective, but you could still resolve the same thing. There's a lot of nice templates here where you can actually have it. You see I have a workspace. You can have this in the cloud. You could share links out. You can say, hey, I want to share my notes with somebody. You can have that out there, or you can make these private. It's very, very flexible. But you'll see that I do similarly the same thing. Like here's web app stuff. These are just my notes. But you can see I have some notes on GraphQL. I want to see more about GraphQL. Here's when I was studying GraphQL. I came through here. And again, I'm very visual, so I was taking pictures, right? And this just helps me. I can go through. It's almost like a slideshow. And then I take some notes here if I need it. If I'm looking at cross-site scripting, maybe I come in here and I have different things I want to look at. Like here's more within cross-site scripting, stealing cookies. Okay, now here I've got actual code put in here, and I could just come copy this code if I want to. And these are different ideas about stealing cookies that I've written in my notes. I take pictures, etc. So there's different ways here to do this, right? Now, before we get into the note-taking tools, I also want to go back and I want to show you one other part that I think is very important. So let's go to the subtopic. Let's say you're typing some stuff, right? You got notes and you want to take a picture, a screenshot of something. I use a tool called Greenshot. Now, Greenshot looks like this. You can take a print screen. You can see that this comes up now on the screen. And if I want to like copy something like this, and this copy, actually that was terrible. Let's copy like the side of the notebook here. I want to copy the side of the notebook. I can hit copy. I can open an image editor. Let me show you the image editor. You can bring it here, and there's some nice things. Like I use this to this day when I'm doing assessments or any sort of just nice picture taking. You can come in here, you can add a border. You can invert this if you want to, or re-invert it there. Have your border, right? You can highlight different areas. Like say I want to point something out specifically. This is very nice. If I want to obfuscate some data, I can come in here and say, oh, that's very sensitive. Let's go ahead and obfuscate that. So there's a lot of flexibility in the tool. And I'm not going to walk you through every single thing. I'm just saying that there's a lot of flexibility and ease of use here that is great for note taking. Then you could save the file, or you could just say copy. So say I want to just copy the image. Now I could take it back and put it in my notebook. And there it is. I just pasted it in my notebook. Super easy stuff. So you're able to snip exactly what you want. There's editing that you can do. You could take full screen pictures, all kinds of stuff just with this tool. Okay, so fantastic tool. Now let's get on to the tools here. I've highlighted a few, and I've highlighted KeepNote. So keepnote.org. You can come here. You can download it. It does work on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. If you want to use that, absolutely fine. Other options, Cherry Tree, very great. Cherry Tree is kind of like the updated KeepNote. You can see it's very similar. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. You can see that it's very similar on the side here, where you have kind of that parent node, the child node, extra children underneath, whatever the verbiage is for that. But this is exactly what it looks like. So you can come in here and type all your stuff. I think it's great. There's different themes and stuff that you can organize here as well if you don't like the dark theme or the light theme, however you want to take it. OneNote, of course, is great. You can store out in the cloud. Fantastic. If you use Microsoft OneNote, I think it's awesome. Notion is the one I was showing you, Notion.so. Same deal. I think this is fantastic. Being able to publish your notes in the cloud, great idea. Joplin is another one. I hear very good things. I've never used this, but I hear very good things about Joplin. So again, just expanding the horizons. If you use one of these, great. If you're not into note-taking, get into note-taking. I'm going to provide you a bunch of options. If you look below this video, you will see the references, okay? The references will have all of these there. You can pick one. You can pick all of them if you want. Play with them. See which one works best for you. Now, Greenshot. Greenshot, I believe, is for Windows only. So yeah, it's Windows PC. If you do not have a Windows PC, then there is a tool called FlameShot. FlameShot you can use on Linux, okay? And I believe it works on Mac as well. You can see the different options it has, like where you can click and just grab a screenshot here. It's showing you right here about all the different things that you can do. Same thing as Greenshot, flexible, easy to use, very, very awesome when it comes to note-taking. So that's really it. I just wanted to kind of walk you through these things. Again, I will provide the links and the references below. But if you aren't taking notes, take notes now. There's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to provide to you, and it's going to seem potentially overwhelming. There's a lot of websites, a lot of methodology, etc. You're going to want to have a good, concise notebook when it's all said and done. So that's my spiel. Hopefully you listen. I can't force you to take notes, but I strongly recommend it. So that is it for this video and this section. I will see you in the next section when we start talking about sock puppets. All right, now let's talk about sock puppets. If you've never heard the term sock puppet before, you can think of it as this online identity that is not who you are, or it's a misrepresentation or somebody you're not. That's the most simple way to put it. You think of a sock puppet as a fake account, alternate identity, etc. And the point of having a good sock puppet is to not draw attention back to yourself. Okay, so if we're doing, say, an OSINT investigation, or if we're looking into research, or we're looking into other people, our goal is to never let the person know that we're looking into them. So ideally, we're going to create this fake identity or fake person. And this fake person might have a Twitter account, might have a Gmail address or Proton Mail or something along those lines. They might have a Facebook. And this should never tie back to you, meaning it should never really tie back to your IP address. It should never be used on a device that links to your personal information. It should never be used on a phone that ties to you. There's a lot of depth that we can go into to avoid tying our name to a sock puppet. But the purpose is really to be able to have an account that looks legitimate. So that means creating content on these accounts. Making sure that you don't just create a bunch of fake accounts and then start doing research on somebody. There should be some history to these accounts. We need to make sure that if we have a Twitter, that we're posting on Twitter. If that we're on Facebook, maybe we have some Facebook connections and we post on our wall. We need to make sure that we establish some data to us, and so that we look more legitimate. Okay, but the main goal of the sock puppet is to do research and to try to investigate others or use the internet or etc. There's a lot of purposes, but for OSINT, to investigate others without being able to identify back to yourself. And we're going to use that in this course, at least just as an introduction. I'm going to teach you the methodology and some of the steps that I would take. And then we're not going to go through all those steps because they're incredibly on the paranoia side. But they're good practice, but we're not going to do that for the purpose of this course. I'll introduce them to you. We'll walk through them, but there's no purpose for this course that you're going to need to do those. So this is a brief introduction of what a sock puppet is, why they might be important. And the next video, we'll actually walk through how to create some sock puppets. Okay, now let's talk about creating sock puppets. What I want to introduce you to are a few different blog posts, and I'm going to link these down below. These were essential for me when I was learning about sock puppets and why they were important and the differences between types of sock puppets and all that. This is extra homework, if you would say. Okay, the first one is from Jake Krebs. I think he does a very good blog on how to create sock puppets. The methodology is pretty straightforward, and there's some things that I really kind of want to point out. Skipping over the methodology, he kind of talks about the different types of sock puppets that you could have. So saying right here, he's talking about there's two different types of sock puppets. You could have a sock puppet that is a full-on, you go all of the way to make sure that you have this person that you create or this persona that you create that is fake. They have that history we're talked about in the past, and it takes a lot of time. Now, your sock could be identified. There's what's called sock hunters. They could easily pick up on you and say, "Hey, this person's a sock. Let's just acknowledge this account as a sock," and then your whole persona is gone. You have to start all the way over again. Okay. Another thing that he points out is there is something else. There's actually known sock accounts. He points out a really good one that I've known about for a while here is Shakira Security, right? Shakira Security is not Shakira, right? But it is an account that has 2,500 followers. It's somebody that posts relevant information and they are respected in the community, but nobody knows who they are. They know that this person is not Shakira. They know that this person is a fake personality, but they're still respected. So there's a couple ways that you could take the sock accounts. For this purpose and what we're doing, this is for investigative purposes. So we're creating a persona, but you could still have this kind of secondary option where it's an account that you can still relate to OSINT. It doesn't have to tie to you. There's quite a few people in the industry that have these sorts of accounts that are very popular, and you have no idea who's behind the account. So something to think about. But for the sake of creating an actual sock puppet, we're going to kind of take option one and go through it. I think this is a fantastic read. I think it's really good to point out. He kind of goes through his steps and what he would do. I think it's great. I'm going to link that. Same thing with this, another article on how to create a sock puppet, what a sock puppet is. I think it's important. I'm providing my methodology and what steps I would take. I think it's important to understand other people's methodology, what steps they might take, what they might do in their process, and their thoughts through it. Okay. This is very beginner OSINT. I'm not trying to take you down the depth of the rabbit hole that could be a sock puppet. I kind of want you to understand the general basics, why they're created, how we can do it, and kind of go from there. So there's also this great Reddit post here. Let's block these notifications. That goes on and just says, here's his process for creating an account. And I found this about a year ago, and I thought, this is perfect. This is something that is absolutely in my wheelhouse. So what I want to show you is kind of what it is, why he walks through it this way. We're also just going to kind of generate some random stuff, figure this out on our own, and then we'll kind of go back to his details, and I'll explain some of this because we're not going to go out and buy a SIM card. We're not going to go out and buy a phone, but there is importance to this. So I think that you should read this. I think that you should understand what the next steps would be if you were doing these things and how you can take this even further. But we'll kind of talk about creating our identity first, and then we'll come back to a thought like this. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is, if you look below the video, there is a fake name generator.com. You can click that link. You can also just type this into a browser, and we're going to generate a random person. Now, you can come in here. You could say my person is random. We could be a male. We could be a female. We could say, we are American from the United States, blah, blah, blah. We can set different types. So for the United States, we have American, or it says American and Hispanic, but here we are American. And there's thought here too. One of these articles, if you take the Art of the Sock article here, talks about the benefit of being a female, because men, let's face it, are gullible, especially when there's a female around. Many of the great OSINT and social engineers are women. They're great at it. And I feel like men, we're vulnerable. So having a woman personality, regardless if you're a man or a woman, could be a good idea. Again, these articles go into the reasoning and the why, and I think they're great. But here, let's just say we generate somebody at random, shows up to be this Roger T. Davis. You get all kinds of great information here. You can get a fake mother's maiden name, social security number, coordinates, phone number, birthday. Let me make this bigger just so everybody can for sure see it. You can have a fake email address, all different sorts of stuff here, right? Passwords, whatever you want. I think this is really great. It's great for just kind of getting some ideas and maybe tailoring this person to who you want to be. So let's say we have a Roger. Say we come up with Roger. Roger's going to be our personality and what we're going to do. So we could take Roger and we can go and maybe create a picture for him. There's a great website here that is This Person Does Not Exist. So you could see here that there's a person here, but this is completely AI generated. Okay, so let's refresh this until we maybe get somebody that we feel like might be a Roger. So we got this guy. Maybe this guy could be it. We do have an age on our persona. It doesn't really matter. Okay, 64 years old. Obviously, this isn't going to be him, but we don't have to keep the age or date. Okay, it could be a younger Roger if we want. And then we could take this picture. And the nice thing about this picture is if you were to put this, which we haven't covered it yet in the course, but if you were to put this in a Google reverse image search, or you were to put this in like a TinEye or a Yandex, this image is not going to come back. This person doesn't exist. We have seen failures in the past of where sock puppet accounts or fake accounts use somebody else's photograph, right? We've all heard of that. When we talk about like online dating, we've heard of the term catfish, right? Catfish being somebody using fake photos to catfish other people or act like they're not. You can think of it the same way. A lot of those people have been busted. And if you watch the show on MTV, which is actually called Catfish, you will see that they go and they actually take the images that people have been sent and they put them through a reverse image search to see if those have been found. A lot of times they'll pick up fake accounts or fake people because they'll tie to other users. And that's exactly what you don't want to have happen. Again, remember, if you put in a lot of effort into your sock account, You don't want your sock account to get immediately busted by having a fake or reverse image search identifying you as somebody else or a fake person. So this is a great idea to come in here and have an image, fake persona, etc. This person does not exist. Once you do that, it is recommended that you get things or start tying this person to accounts that do not tie back to you whatsoever. That could mean using a laptop that you would use specifically for your investigations that does not have any, you would never log into your personal Twitter, your personal Facebook, whatever accounts you have, you would never log in on that account. It would never tie to you. Okay. That could mean also going out and getting a burner phone. A lot of people in OSINT recommend having a burner phone if you're doing investigations. Now, this course isn't related specifically to investigations. As stated earlier, I'm not an investigator, though I have done some investigation work. This is just a broad view of OSINT as a whole. There are much deeper topics on this subject. But what we can do is say we want to go out and buy a cell phone. We can have this privacy.com credit card. Okay, we can go buy a burner phone. We can use a credit card like this. And if you were to log in or sign up to create an account here, what you can see behind the scenes is that you have the ability to create credit cards. Let me actually bring this up. Okay, so here's an account I created. And what we have here is the ability to fund this card, okay? And then you have a virtual credit card. And you can have as many virtual credit cards as you want. This gives you the ability to have a spending limit, to have, say, like there's a subscription you want to try out for $9.99, just as an example, and you only want to try it out for a month. We're so terrible with subscriptions sometimes. We just let them go. I've got an Audible subscription that I have just let sit and charge me $15 a month for the last 5 months now that I still need to cancel. This would be a great alternative. You use a virtual card. It goes to charge you the second month. It doesn't work. You have your a card that doesn't tie to your name or your identity or anything else. It's all virtual. This is perfect. So say you want to buy a burner phone. Say you want to buy a SIM card for that burner phone. Now you'll see that people recommend Mint. You can use a Mint SIM to use in your phone. You can get it off Amazon and you could take that path. And this is exactly what this person recommends here, right? They recommend using a Mint mobile setup. They're fairly cheap. They said it's $5 on Amazon to get 2 SIM cards. You can use your phone then to go and use it as a phone verification method. So if we think about like Facebook or sometimes Twitter, any of those things, you're going to want to set up either verification or 2-factor or whatever. And the goal here is to use these accounts to actually, or use this phone to actually sign up for it. As soon as you're done signing up, you change those over to something that you control, like a Google Voice account, and then you get rid of the SIM card. You never have access to that SIM card again, destroyed. Nothing is related to you. Okay, again, highly recommend reading this. But the idea here is that you create things that don't tie back to you. So with that being said, the other thing that's important to talk about are IP addresses. Ideally, you do not want to do this on your own IP address. Okay, you do not want this to tie back to you. When you're creating these accounts, you don't want to tie back to you. You could, in theory, use a VPN. The issue with VPNs is places like Facebook and other sites might pick it up that you're on a VPN, want additional verification, and then you're kind of SOL if you can't provide that because you have a fake account. So you need to be cautious about using VPNs. Try to identify VPNs that maybe would work if you're trying to create a full SOC account. Ideally, it should be in the location that you're trying to do it in. So if you're doing say you're in St. Louis, Missouri in the United States. If you're in St. Louis, you're saying your character's from St. Louis, then you should ideally use a VPN that could get you into St. Louis and create those accounts so that you look like you are coming from where you are. Same thing with the phone number. You should try to get a phone number out of St. Louis. Make your persona as legitimate as possible. Okay, now mobile networks work really great. You don't have to be on your home network. You could be on a mobile if you can't use a VPN or if that's getting picked up. So just think about things, try to create them through. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to practice. I want you to follow this setup as best as you can. Don't go buy a burner phone. Don't go do any of that unless you absolutely want to practice this full-fledged. Again, we're not going into the weeds in this course. We're scratching the surface. If this interests you, then dig deeper, go further. I fully encourage it. But for right now, just go create a fake persona, come into the random name generator, create a fake persona, create a fake picture, make an account, make a Twitter, make a Facebook, Make anything that you would want. Don't worry so much about the IP address. Don't worry so much about the phone number. I will tell you, this is from personal experience. The very first sock puppet account that I created, I used it on Facebook. Okay. This is a life lesson. I used it on Facebook. And then I never had any issues with it until the day that I logged into Facebook with my phone. Immediately, it started pulling down contacts and people who I may know. And that ties me immediately to those other people from my phone. Okay. And guess what happens on the other side? People that I know or may know are seeing me pop up as who they may know. And this person doesn't exist, obviously, but why am I showing up? So you need to be very cautious about not logging in with your phone, not logging in anywhere that is not tied to you. Don't search people on your sock Facebook account if you don't need to. Don't search people that are related to you or anything. Use a separate account for that, even if you have to. But think about creating a Twitter, a Facebook, maybe an Instagram, maybe a LinkedIn. You can create these accounts. For the purpose of this course, I'm going to be straightforward with you. I'm going to use my own personal accounts. We're going to do OSINT on my own personal accounts. I'm going to use my Twitter account when we're doing Twitter. I'm going to use, I don't have a Facebook, so I will create a Facebook account, but I'll show you how to search through things using my own stuff. But for the purpose of correct OPSEC, for the purpose of doing this the right way, you should be thinking about the things I'm telling you. Read through these 3 articles. That is definitely your homework. Read through these 3 articles. Take time. Don't just jump into the next video. Really take time to think about how you create a sock puppet, how you would go about it, and understand why it's important. Okay, understand why it's important. There's more meaning to a sock puppet beyond OSINT investigation. There's more meaning beyond this course. I just want you to understand why we're doing it, what the purpose is, and how you can do it effectively. Okay, so from here, we're going to go ahead and move on into our actual OSINT stuff. So we're going to start off with some search engine OSINT, and I'll see you in the next section when we dig into that. Now on to search engine operators and search engine OSINT. So what we're going to be looking at is pretty much the first step that I would take when I'm looking up somebody or something or a business or whatever it is that I'm investigating or researching. I typically go out to a search engine. Usually my preference is Google. Here in a second, I'm going to show you a bunch of different search engines. We'll kind of talk through them and we'll talk through the different operators. And of course, I will provide references and I'll provide even some cheat sheets for you to look through these different operators and search engines, and you can apply those how you see fit. So let's go ahead and switch over. For this part of the course, I'm going to start using my Linux machine. There's no expectation for you to use that. I'm just using that because I have my Firefox, and we're going to eventually transition into Linux a little bit later. But for right now, I'm just using the browser. You can use it pretty much wherever you want. So what I've gone ahead and done right now is I've searched my name. I've searched my name here in Google. I've searched it in DuckDuckGo, in Bing, Yandex, and then a couple more search engines down here, okay? So I've got Baidu. Actually, this is just Yandex operator. So I want to show you the results and kind of why maybe I have some preference towards Google, but I'm searching myself. So I'm just searching my name here into Google. You can search me if you want. You can search yourself, however you want to do this. And what comes up is Twitter, LinkedIn, Udemy. These are all me. Innocent Lives Foundation, that's me. All of these are me. The Cyber Mentor, Veteran Sec, Wild West Hacking Fest, Reddit. Yep, this is all about me. The only thing that's not me is this here. Searches related to me, my net worth, Udemy, age, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, OSCP. So yeah, these are pretty much all about me. If you come over to DuckDuckGo, which is more of a privacy-based search engine, it kind of gets a little bit different here. You could see that it comes back with me pretty much right away, and then you see Twitter, LinkedIn, Innocent Lives Foundation again. Then we get Herbalife, somebody in South Carolina, a Dr. Heath Adams from Tasmania, and then a bunch of different pictures, most of which are not me. So it gets interesting. It's not really picking me up as much as it was. Now I'm down here again. Some of the other ones down here, TCM Security, Udemy, those would be me. Any of these are not related to me whatsoever. So I do think that Google does a better job. And you'll see again here, I'll kind of breeze through this. The first few are me. This presentation is actually me. These are not. And then again, looks like it goes to South Carolina and just different kind of more people search, people OSINT record type deal, which we'll get into a bunch of these later. But it's picking up other people, it looks like. Yandex is a Russian-based search engine. It actually does a pretty good job of picking me up. In the next section, we'll kind of talk about Yandex and where I find it more important, or where I find it more useful in terms of being a search engine. But for now, I don't really use Yandex for operator searching. I use it more for image searching, which is the next section. And then here you'll see Baidu. I don't really show up. This is more of Asian based. And it doesn't do a very good job, in my opinion, for if you're searching anything US based or even European based. I don't find this to be very great, but I wanted to point it out because obviously we will have Asian students. If you use Baidu, great. A lot of the operators I'm going to show you pretty much flow through to all of these. Okay, so I'm going to search on Google, but most of these flow through across the board. Again, I'll provide references and resources so that you can go ahead and check these search engines out. Try it on your favorite search engine. Give it a go. For the most part, everything's the same. There are some slight tweaks in operators, but for most of what I'm going to show you holds true. Okay, so let's go back to Google. Now, we can take a look at some things. I want to search, and we'll just go through my life recently. So in my life recently, I am going to go back to undergrad. I'm working on getting some classes for my PhD, and I am planning on attending WGU. So WGU is a university. Now with WGU, there's a bunch of courses that are in this curriculum, and I kind of want to know more about those courses. I kind of want to research those courses and find out information. And what I might do is I might say something like WGU Calc 1. Like I have to take Calculus 1, right? So Calculus 1 and search that. Now what should come back is a WGU page. You can see that. There's Reddit, there's videos on YouTube, there's a course hero. So it's kind of just all over the place. There's some flashcards. And what I kind of want to find out is, well, what is WGU's course called? Well, it looks like, if you ask me, well, we see C282 and then we see a C958. So I'm thinking within the last year or two here, it says 958. So maybe here I want to say something like WGU C958, because we might get some different returns on those results. And now you're seeing, okay, so we're getting calculus, calculus, calculus. And maybe because we searched Calc 1, we didn't get all of these. So we're getting different types of pages here just by changing our search results just a little bit. Another thing that we can do is say, like, I really don't care about seeing WGU's website unless I want to see the course study. Like maybe I am after WGU, maybe I am after some other things. But here I'm actually interested in Reddit. So I might type in Reddit, which will help a little bit. Like it'll bring up Reddit posts, but it might start bringing up other posts that aren't via Reddit. So what I like to do here, if I'm searching something, I might just say cite Reddit. Okay, so you type in cite Reddit, and I messed that up. Reddit.com would be the correct one. Cite reddit.com. And then you come in here and you see, okay, now all we're going to get are Reddit websites. Okay, Reddit websites only. So anything that's a reddit.com, we're going to come here and we're going to see. So now I can say, okay, WGU C958 cite reddit.com. Maybe I want it to include, maybe I want to say, I want everything included to say WGU and C958. Maybe I want it to be like that. Okay, so now it might change things out. What we're looking for is the term WGU, which is showing here in the address bar, and then it's also going to control with C958, which is going to show somewhere in here. So somewhere in here is C958 and WGU. Now, maybe instead of saying and with the operators, I want to just have these combined. I want this search term to be like this. So it has to be in this order. This is specific. We're putting quotes around it. So we say WGU C958, and we don't find anything. All right. So, but here's an example. You see the C958 calculus. So if we typed in C958 calculus, just like this on Reddit, now we're going to find some stuff where it shows C958 calculus in this order. Okay, so we can narrow down searches like this, and it's really nice. So we might come in here, and now I can go to specifically what I want to see on this Reddit page. And there could be something like, I know for a fact. Let's take away this. But I know for a fact that there is a professor that is on YouTube called Professor Leonard for this. Okay, and Professor Leonard teaches calculus. He's known as a good resource for teaching calculus, and a lot of people use him at WGU. Maybe I want to find every post on Reddit that references calculus and Professor Leonard, or maybe just C958, because just like that. And let's see what we get. We get 139 results. Okay, but now we see, okay, Professor Leonard it's in here. C958's in here. If we wanted WGU to be in there as well, we could say and WGU and just like this. Now we have conditional operators. We could say C958 or Professor Leonard on Reddit. So maybe we bring up different pages. So look, this one now has changed. This has nothing to do with WGU. Somebody's just saying Professor Leonard is better than Khan Academy when it comes to calculus. Okay, and then somebody's talking about they like somebody else better than Professor Leonard. Nothing related to WGU here because we changed that or operator, right? So these things matter. These things change. There's a lot of different things that we can do with these operators. Now, this is a WGU example, but maybe we want to look at something different. Maybe we want to put a wildcard in. Maybe you want to look for me. You know, I'm Heath Adams. You're going to put me in a quote. And you see people call me the cyber mentor, but maybe you're like, I don't remember what they call him. Maybe, you know, he's the something mentor. You could say something like the wildcard mentor. And that will start bringing up anything with that wildcard there. So you can wildcard here and look for the and mentor, and you'll see cyber comes up. Okay, this is another way to look for different things. Now, we can start getting investigative. Say I'm looking for an organization. I'm going to pick on Tesla. I like picking on Tesla because I love Tesla. Say I'm looking for Tesla, and this is actually something that happened. I was reading in a bug bounty not that long ago. There was a bug that happened where somebody was searching for passwords on Google for Tesla. They happened to find one that hit the search engine. It literally hit within like a day or two of them finding it. And it was only there for a day or two. They found it. It was credentials that allowed them to log into, I believe, a help desk type deal, like a ServiceNow. And they got into their ticketing system and they gained access to sensitive information at Tesla. And you can absolutely do this with the search engine. So I kind of want to show you now how we could take a search engine and start maybe hunting a password or hunting something along those lines. So what we might do here is say we're looking at Tesla. So we know we want to look at site Tesla. All right, so sitetesla.com. And maybe we'll want to look for the word password. And that's going to bring up some, it's okay. We get the reset your password. This is going to be perhaps not really great for us. We could probably improve this, right? Maybe we're not going to look for the word password in a regular website. Like we're not going to look for it here. Maybe instead we want to look for it on like, I don't know, a PDF or maybe like a docx or maybe an Excel or CSV. So we can come in here and say like file type. Okay. And now we could say file type PDF. So what we're searching is we're saying, hey, I want to look for the word password in the site Tesla with the file type of PDF. Hit enter. You get 83 results. Now all we're seeing are PDFs with the word password. Now PDF might not be the best one. Maybe, they stored it in an Excel document. So XLSX like this, hit enter, and let's see. We got nothing back. All right, so that didn't work. Maybe we can try something else. What if we just deleted the term password? Just as an example. Okay, and what's coming back is that there's absolutely no Excel type files here on Tesla. So that's interesting. But if we were to search this, maybe we'll search like docx instead. Okay, there's two files here. There's an investor relations file in residential electric vehicle. Okay, so nothing great here. But some ideas that we might do is we might say something like, XLSX, we might say password. And maybe password's not it. Maybe it's pass, like this. Or maybe we're looking for PWD or something along those lines. You have to think not just the word password, but other alternatives of it. Okay, so you can start really narrowing down. But you don't have to be looking for just a password in an Excel document. You could perhaps just find a sensitive document here. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff pop up when I'm looking, and you don't have to limit it to the website. You could say, hey, I want to look at PWD XLSX for anything that just says Tesla.com in it. Okay. And see what happens there. We get one result. So here's an Excel file from the EPA.gov. There's PWD ID, and we have no idea what this is. So we might want to dig into that. We might want to say something like pass in here. And this is how I would research this. This is literally how I would go. If I had a client, I would look through for this client. I would say, can I find a password related to anything that they have, anything sensitive that they're leaking? Are there any documents out there that might be of interest to us? And go through all of these types of deals. Now, like I said, there was a bug bounty that was found not that long ago just by doing this same methodology. Now, there's more things that we can do. Say that we're looking for subdomains of a website. Now, if you're not familiar with subdomains, you have like a www.tesla.com, but I also saw something come up like ir.tesla.com or forms.tesla.com. These are all subdomains of the tesla.com website. So what you can do is you could say, hey, I want to look at site tesla.com, but I really don't care for the www. Please don't show me anything with www in it. And now you can see that takes out anything that had www in the front. So we have shop, we have forms, Appleizer or app player, more shop, more forms. Maybe, I know about the forms. I don't care about the forms. They're wasting space in my search results. Let's take those out. And look, 61,000 just went down to 7980. So now we get shop, and you could keep going through here. Now, like we found a live stream API. So this is a good way to come through using Google and just finding potential subdomains here that we didn't know about. If we're investigating a website and we're doing some sort of investigation there, which we'll cover website OSINT later on in the course, but these are just kind of overviews of how you can take these and just kind of manipulate that. But it's the same thing. Like if you wanted to search for me again, say search for Heath Adams, but you don't want anything related to the Cyber Mentor, maybe you can get rid of that. Maybe you can get rid of also the word mentor and just kind of eliminate a lot of these things. So where have I been potentially, or maybe you don't even want me. You don't want anything to deal with me. You want somebody else. Okay, now you're pulling up Heath Adams Partners and Lawyers. Remember, we were seeing that on other pages. Dr. Heath Adams on Facebook, scholar, cardiologist. So now you're starting to see different people, different results. I'm not here anymore because you took me out of the equation. So these are just, again, different operators that you can use and throw into the mix that would be incredibly useful. You just have to think about the logic behind how you're going to do things. Now, there's a couple more that I want to show you before we wrap it up here. So we can do something called in title, in URL, in text. I like saying things like this. Like, look, we could look for in text. So we're say in text password. I want to see if there's anything related to me with password in the text. So you're going to come through here and see what do I have related to password. So I've got some things here with breach parse, which is a tool I wrote, some things that we were talking on Twitter. I was saying something about password on Twitter. Now this could be a way to search through my Twitter if you wanted to. You could say, I want to see if Heath has ever said the word password on Twitter. So cite twitter.com. Or we could say the Cyber Mentor site, twitter.com, and start looking here. So like here I was talking about, I love political season password spraying. Like there's different things here that I talk about, and you could find that for me. So that's in text. Now we could say something more like in URL. Now in URL is going to be looking at the URL and seeing if the word password exists there. Now it's not going to for something like Twitter. Let's see if we can find URL and a password. There's not many great resources here. So it really just depends. Like these are just weird websites that are showing up. But if there's a hunch that you have something is in the URL, it's always good to know, the in URL exists. In text is probably my most commonly used one because I could just search for a term that I want to show up on that web page and I know that I need it to be there. So in text is great. But if you have the same situation with in URL, that's great. Another thing is in title. So you could say in title password. So we should pull up some results here. 439. So here in the title, you can see that password shows up. So anywhere where password shows up in title, you're good. So there's a bunch of different options that you can do here. Okay. And I think that these are great. I actually don't even know what this site is. So somebody wrote a blog on a hacking tutorial, and it looks like they've got different types of hacking here that somehow tied into me. So it's very interesting to see some of these things when you're searching yourself and searching for other results. All right, one more thing. Last thing I want to show you. Mostly everything that I've shown you at this point um, is something that you can utilize on all the other search engines. So if you find difficulty or something not particularly working very well, definitely check the cheat sheets. But for the most part, everything's just about the same. Now, if you don't want to go through and deal with all the operators and remember them, which I think you should, I think it's great practice. It really helps. Those who can Google, those who can search very well, will do great things. Google has paid for my education. Google has paid for my job. Google has made me who I am today. I'm not even kidding. One of the first interviews, I'm sidetracked a little bit, but one of the first interviews I ever had, I had a job interview for a help desk position, and he said, "What would you do if you didn't know the answer?" I'd say, "Well, I'd ask somebody or I'd Google it." And his response to me was, "That's perfect. I say that I feed my family on Google." And that has stuck with me because it's really true. The better that you can do research and really hunt things down, it becomes so useful. Just beyond OSINT, beyond this here, it becomes incredibly useful. But okay, look, all the things that we've been talking about here. We have this google.com/advanced_search. All you have to do is come in here and type the words that you want. So say we want Heath Adams. All right. So you would say this exact search, you'd put it in quotes, Heath Adams. It's telling you how to do it. Any of these words, none of these words. So maybe you don't want www like we talked about. You can come in here and say site or domain, and you say, we'll look at twitter.com, and we'll just see. Actually, we don't want to eliminate www because that might not show up anything. Then you type in an advanced search. And what's it do for you? It does it for you. It's amazing. Everything is here for you. You don't have to put in the quotes. You don't have to put in the site. And if there's things that you're trying to think about that maybe you're like, I really want to narrow this down to a language. I want to narrow this down to a region, a certain time frame, etc. And that's one other thing that I could show you too, is if you come into the tools, you can look at any time, past hour, past 24 hours. I think this is fantastic. So what have I posted in the past week on Twitter? You can see 4 days ago, 7 days ago, etc. I'm pretty active on Twitter. You can see what pictures are there. Like this is something I posted not that long ago. I retweeted this picture. So yeah, there's all different kinds of stuff. Hey, look, the OSINT course. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on out there, right? And even within the past week, even probably within the past 24 hours. So you can find different stuff about me. That's pretty interesting in yourselves or whoever you're researching. And then you have you can say all results verbatim. You can clear this out. I think it's very nice. We haven't even gotten into news or images or any of this stuff, but you can go into images and see what you can find. Can you find me? Well, that's a little provocative, but you can find funny pictures of me that are showing up on search engines, all different kinds of stuff, right? So, I mean, it's interesting. Like, that's me. That's my wife. Like, there's Udemy. There's all different kinds of stuff in here. Those are my cats. And this is just from Twitter. This is just from what I posted on Twitter. Look, there's my dog. So you can find a lot of stuff about somebody in a very short period of time with just doing some basic searches. You want to find videos about me, you can come in here, look at different videos from Twitter that I may have posted. And it's very interesting in how this all narrows down. So what I want to say and take you, I'm going to go back to the advanced search. You can do this here and really think about it. If there's a specific region or a specific time frame or a specific anything, here's the file formats that you can search for. It's all possible here. So think about how you want to search things, practice with this, play with this, improve with this, And the best person to search, I think, is yourself. If there's some stuff that you think might be out there about you and you kind of want to figure it out, put your name in Google, start searching it. Search in text with like the first 4 or 5 digits of your address, for example, and see if you pop up, or your city or something like that. See different things that might show up and see how you search yourself. So that's really it for this video, and that's really it for this section. From here, we're going to move on to image OSINT and talk about how we can identify stuff just from a picture. So I will see you over in the next section. On to the image and location OSINT section. We're going to start off with reverse image searching. Now, in an earlier section, we were talking about sock puppets, and I talked about the show Catfish. I was talking about people using pictures and there being reverse image searching and possibly being able to identify people who are using pictures that aren't theirs. It's really quite easy to do. So, in this section, if you look at the resources, what I have done is I've included a picture of me, though you can use any picture that you want. I'm going to be using this picture right here to kind of show you. So, I've got this picture right here. I'm going to use this in 3 different search engines to kind of show you what the results are, and we'll kind of talk about each of the search engines. So I've got this picture. This picture I pretty much use on LinkedIn, on Twitter, etc. This is kind of my main go-to right now. So what I'm going to do with this image is I'm going to go out to first images.google.com, and this will be provided in the resources down below as well. But if you go to images.google.com, you can follow along here. All you need is an image. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the image and we're going to just drag this in here, and it should search. Let's see what happens when it does that. It identifies me as the image. Look, 237 results, and it says you may be looking for Heath Adams. So this is what tied in. So what it's looking for is any image right now that matches this specific size. And then it says, hey, let's go ahead. You can say, I want to find all sizes. I want to find this picture small, medium, and large. And there's some pictures that look kind of like me, but aren't me. So your results may vary when you click on these, but when you come through here, it's absolutely me, right? Like you see here, okay, you're pulling up Heath Adams. If we were to go to Twitter and check it out, we can confirm. So if we're playing like a scenario-based situation here, where say somebody decided that this was a great picture, they're going to use this as their sock puppet or their dating profile, and we're suspicious of this account, so we just take this picture, throw it into a reverse image search, and see what we can find. So here's what we found. We found, hey, this belongs to me, and you can also find different areas where it might be here. So like you have the same options, by the way. You can use this photo and say you don't want anything from Twitter. You could take out twitter.com as an example, and then just see results now for LinkedIn, for Udemy. And there you have these results, and then it will go back to filtering down to Twitter and everything else once it runs out of options. So these are matching images, but not exact matches to this image. So it depends on how you want to narrow this down. But with that being said, we can do this in another location, 2 other locations. There's quite a few reverse image searching. These are the 3 that I use the most. If I don't find it on one of these 3, it's probably less likely that you're going to find it, in my opinion. It doesn't mean that one of the other search engines won't have it. It's just unlikely. So Yandex has come back again, and we talked about Yandex in the search engine OSINT section, and now we're back to yandex.com. All I did was click on images, and I'm going to drop this image here as well, and we're just going to see what happens. I've actually not done this, so let's see what happens. What I do like about Yandex is that not only will it pick up this picture here, but it will pick up similar images of this picture. What that means and where that's useful is, say that you're trying to hunt down somebody. And I've had this happen with missing persons and when we're doing trace labs and things along those lines for those competitions. If you dump this into Yandex, maybe that's the only photo that you found is the only one that exists of that person. But maybe, just maybe, you have them show up again in another photo that's similar. It could be similar time frame, like similar, like say it was just second part of this headshot or like an off take or something along those lines. Or it could be a similar that same person in a different picture, but because it looks or the features so similar, they use this matching mechanism to say, hey, I think this is who it is. So that's what's going on here. They're trying to match this person. You can see that it found it here on these websites, which it looks like it's pulling up this TWUGI, which is off of Twitter, it looks like. If you come here and you click on this, you can click on similar images and see what pulls up. And this is on TW stock. So this is some sort of Twitter stock type deal here that it's pulling up. So you could look through the picture, say you're looking for other people. This is kind of where you have to kind of eyeball it and say, hey, does this person exist? What are we looking for here? Click back on me and you could see maybe there would be some sort of similar images, but there's not. So it's just kind of giving you ideas. It's not perfect, but sometimes Yandex does a great job of picking up other pictures that you just wouldn't have identified, because where they're looking here a lot of the times for the exact photo, and here as well for Tin Eye, which I'll show you in a second, Yandex is looking for more than that. They're looking at slight variations, and not just the same photo, but slight variations of that photo, or photos where it could be that person. So this is always good to look through and see if you can identify that anywhere else. Now, the last one I want to show you is Tin Eye. Tin Eye is great. You can just come in here and say, hey, upload. So tineye.com. You come in here and you do a reverse image search. And this one I did try out. And you can see here that, look, it doesn't do as great of a job as Google does. I think Google does the best here. But Tin Eye can find something perhaps different. Like, look, it found this technologysolutions.northstate.net. What does that say? Well, if we click on this and say I'm your subject and you're researching me, well, you just found an article written by me in 2018 talking about pen testing techniques. So now you have maybe a potential place where I used to work. You have that I've written articles. You have that maybe I'm a subject matter expert on a specific topic. So now you're identifying additional information on me based on maybe a website that did not show up previously. So maybe that wouldn't show up here, right? So you have to be aware of using all of your options. And that's why I like to show more than one website. Yes, because a website can go away. Not that Google or Yandex are going to go away, but it's always good to see alternatives and see why one thing might pick something up and then something might not pick it up on the other search engine. So it's always good to use multiple search engines when you're doing Googling, when you're doing searching, or when you're doing any sort of reverse image searching. And you'll see that throughout the course where we use something different, we find a different result. So that's it for this video. We're going to move on to EXIF data in the next video. Now let's talk about viewing EXIF data. What is EXIF data? Well, EXIF is exchangeable image file, and there is data that belongs to that. Now, EXIF data can be very telling and can provide a lot of information. When you snap a picture, there can be data left behind that can be tied back to you. This used to be very, very true in the older days than it is now, as there's more protection mechanisms put in place by cell phones, by websites such as Twitter. Location data is very much more secure, but it doesn't mean it's incredibly secure. You can see here in a second that EXIF data is prominent. It can tell you an exact location. It can tell you an exact device. There's a lot of details that can be found. Now, I am pulling up a picture that I had stored on my hard drive. And I literally pulled up the first photo because I knew this type of photo was taken maybe close to 10 years ago. And I knew the data would be there. I knew because there were no real thoughts about protection, especially when I took it on this device, that anything about location or date or any of that, there's no real thoughts about it. So what we're going to go through is viewing EXIF data. You're going to see what you can see on some of this stuff. And in terms of EXIF data, in a real world scenario, I have seen it as recent as the last 6 months when doing an investigation, where there was a picture that I was looking at and it had data that tied not only to the phone, but also tied to the person's location, exact location, and told me where they lived, what type of phone they were using, when the photo was taken. And it is rock solid when it comes to evidence, and it's rock solid when it comes to having something that can be concrete in an investigation. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, we can go to a web browser, and if you go to exif.regex.info, again, this will be in the description down below, you will come to Jeffrey's Image Metadata Viewer. Now, there are ways to do this in Linux, and we'll show that as we get to the tools section, but using our manual methodology here, we're going to go ahead and use this website. All you have to do is take the picture, which I provided a picture in this section. Go ahead, and I'm just going to go to Browse, Pictures, and then there's this image here, which isn't really showing, but I'm going to load it, say I'm not a robot, and then we're going to have to select some parking meters, verify that. Let's see what we can find on this picture. All right, it didn't like me there in my Linux machine, so I'm going over to my Windows machine and trying the same image. I'm just going to view the image data here. Let's see what happens this time around. All right, this is more like it. So this is a picture of my dog, my old dog, Layla, and we were going on a walk. So this is all I have. It's just a basic photo that I took in my phone at the time. We were going for a walk somewhere, and I have no idea where we were. I really did not know here. But you can see some information on this. Let me actually make this a little bit bigger. So you can see that this was taken from an Apple iPhone 4S. So at one point, if you saw this on a page of mine or you saw this somewhere where I'd uploaded it, now Twitter has pretty good protections in place, Facebook, etc. Better protections nowadays. But say I put this like on a website, say I had it on a blog of mine or something, and the EXIF data was not stripped out before uploading, then you might be able to pull down this information. You can see that at some point I owned an Apple iPhone 4S. Here's the lens, here's the exposure. Flash was not on when this picture was taken. Here's the date. This was taken on March 11, 2012. So you can see what today's day is and how long ago this was. And you get a latitude, longitude, okay, which I think is super important. So you can just click on something like Google. They take you to any of the maps that you want, but Google here, let's just go ahead and say Google, and that'll open up Google Maps. And this will tell you exactly where it was taken, latitude and longitude. And what do you see? Wildwood, Toledo, Ohio. So at some point, I was in Toledo, Ohio. At some point in 2012, I was walking my dog in this park in Toledo, Ohio. Okay, so this can tell you a lot about somebody. This could tell you a lot. What did we just find out about me? I have a dog. I took that dog for a walk. I have an iPhone or had an iPhone 4S. I at some point was present in Toledo, Ohio on a specific date and time. That is the power of EXIF data. Okay. Now, if you are curious, you can actually scroll down and see the full EXIF data. So it'll tell you pretty much anything and everything you want to know about the picture. You got the shutter speed, aperture, etc. But what we're really interested in would be the GPS information, the device type, the date that this was taken, and this really could help us when it comes to an investigation. So this is awesome information. So if you have a photo of something, say it's your subject, say it's whatever you're investigating, always look at the EXIF data. You never know what you're going to pull down. Again, it's less likely on a platform such as Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, as they've started stripping those out, but it still doesn't hurt to look when you find something, especially if somebody sends you a photo or they were sent a photo. It's much more likely to have this EXIF data in there. And again, I've seen this in an investigation within the last 6 months where a photo was sent in a fraud case, and we were able to look at that photo, identify where the person was at, and hand that over to the appropriate authorities. Okay, so important stuff here. And that's really it for this lesson. So we're going to go ahead and move on into geographical data, and it's going to get pretty interesting and pretty fun in the next few videos. So I look forward to seeing you over in the next video. Next up is physical location OSINT. Now, as a pen tester and consultant, I've done quite a bit of this, as we are sometimes asked to do some legal breaking and entering in what's called a physical penetration test. So what we'll do is we'll take satellite imaging and we'll look at the satellite images to see if we can identify any useful information from looking at the satellite images. And then we can also go out on site and we'll have tools such as a drone that we might fly from a mile away and see if we can identify any useful information. So let's take a look at a map and then I'll kind of walk you through what information we might be looking for here. So if we look at this map, all I've done is go to Google here. If you go to google.com and then get to the map section, I've gone ahead and just typed in Tesla HQ. So what we're looking at is Tesla headquarters here at 3500 Deer Creek Road. So if you want to follow along, you can. If you just want to watch, you can as well. So it's got pictures here, which could be useful if you want to look at the different photographs from, the ground. But you can also come in here and click on the satellite view. Now, depending on the satellite view that you get, sometimes you might get an address for our client. I've had this happen before where we've gotten an address and the building was so new that the satellite actually didn't even have a picture of the building. So we had to go around, and I don't have a great secondary, but you can go around and just try to look up different satellite imaging and see if there's anything out there that would have an improved image. So it's always good to have an idea of maybe getting a backup image on this just to be sure. But if you want to look at this, what we're trying to see is how do we gain access to this building? What is the surrounding area? So if I'm doing reconnaissance here and I'm trying to look for physical OSINT, I not only want to look at what's going on at this building, I want to look at what's going on around here. Because like I said, if I'm driving a drone if I'm flying a drone, I want to make sure I can drive to a location that I can fly the drone from and not really seem suspicious. So it could be good in a parking lot that could be maybe either empty or saturated depending on the building, a remote location, which it looks like we've got nothing but over here, and just somewhere where we can sit and maybe not look so suspicious. So it looks like even some of these off roads back here, you might be able to just park and hang out in a situation where you can then fly it across here depending on the actual mileage and distance. But anyway, with that being said, besides doing on-site reconnaissance, well, with a drone, and you could actually drive around if possible, just to see if you can see anything physically while you're there. But what we want to identify is if you're coming in on this road, is there any private access? Like if I'm just driving down the street and I need to get into Tesla, this HQ area, is there a private access? Is there a blocked path? You can think of it like if you've ever seen like the movie theaters, not theaters, but like the movie sets where they have the guard waiting for somebody to check you in. And I always see that in the movies. But if you see something like that where there's a guard desk here and you have to be able to show ID and say why you're there to be able to even drive on, this is probably not going to be the path of entrance that you want to get through unless you're preparing to do some sort of social engineering. So you're looking for, does it have any protection measures in place here? Are we seeing any guards? Which if I'm driving around the building, I'm not seeing any guards. Is there anywhere that I can park in this parking lot that wouldn't be too suspicious? Now you want to see, okay, there's a parking lot here. There's also a parking lot over here. And looking at a lot of these cars, a lot of them look like Teslas. So especially in the back here, it looks like most of these are Teslas. So maybe you don't want to try to park back here with all the Teslas. Maybe there's a reason that they're back there. Maybe you want to just try to park in what looks like an employee parking lot over here. This looks like more like visitor parking up over here. So my hunch would be that if you're looking at this building, this right here is probably this right here. This is probably HQ where you're walking in the front door in this receptionist area would be my guess. So if you're parking here, this is high visibility. This is probably high traffic here. Now, what we can try to do too is get lower onto the ground and try to have like a street view if we can and get this person. And let's see if we can get into the street view over here. Okay, there's street view. So yeah, look at all the different Teslas around here. So we could try to click through and see if we can find anything. What we're kind of looking for is, are there any, oh, they're not going to let us click through anymore. Are there any doors that might be of interest? Like, do we see a door and what's on the door? Is there badging? Can we find or identify any sort of like badge readers, card readers? Are employees going to these specific areas to smoke? Like, is there a smoke area back here? Behind the building, because that's a really good place to target as well. If you're trying to do social engineering or you're trying to, just navigate your way in, a lot of times employees will just prop doors open. Or if you go outside and have a cigarette with an employee and you just kind of chat them up, they're more likely to just let you in and hold the door open for you, and you just kind of navigate once you're in. It's better than going through the front door and having to try to deal with reception and social engineering your way in there, though that is an option as well depending on the building. So you want to identify, is there security here? What are the people doing? What are the people wearing? You can tell like this person is pretty business casual. He's got slacks on, looks like a dress shirt tucked in, got a backpack. So that's not out of the ordinary. Looks like to have a backpack, nice shoes. It looks like a lot of these people are wearing red. So it looks like maybe there's some sort of Tesla employee dress code if you're working right here. Maybe these people are doing some sort of checking people in and checking people out depending on how it's coming in. So maybe driving this way might not be the best area. Here's another person walking right here. There's looks like a booth in the middle of the street. This could actually this could be a security guard area as well. So we don't know. So it's good. This is good to check out and see what's going on. So if you try to drive right past here, maybe there's a security guard and they're going to stop you before you turn in. So maybe you might want to turn in and drive here. Maybe you want to go around the back where we were looking as well. And you can come down this street and kind of maybe look and see what else you can find when you're down here. So you can see like the Tesla sign here. And the satellite view really didn't offer a lot of that. But if we click down and come down this road, I'm going to try to click through here real quick. But if we come down here and see, remember there's that back entrance. Maybe we can turn in back here and there's no safety protection measures or anything back here, if we can get in back here. Let's see, here's another person walking, looks like across the street. I wonder if they're trying to get in or where they're walking from. Looks like this is actually fenced off right here, so there's no way to get in, perhaps, without looking too suspicious. There's a Tesla coming out of this entrance here, so let's see what's going on right here. Let's see, they've got a gate here, and we can't really click our way in, so all we can do is best practice is look right here and see what we can see. So it looks like there's possibly some steps right here, possibly leading to a door. There looks like maybe some sort of work van. And then there's this gate that's open. So who knows if there's somebody that's watching this as you drive through or what's going on. So this is where having the on-site reconnaissance, either driving by, trying to drive through the parking lot or anything along those lines, or flying a drone over just to get a feel for where this is at. Is a good idea as well. Like there's a person right here. I don't know if they're smoking or what they're doing. So it's always good to get a feel on site as well. But looking at a satellite like this can tell you at least some idea of what's going on, what protection measures might be in place, and what you might need to do in order to attack this building. And I'm thinking of it from a pen tester physical security mindset. If we're doing an investigation, it still can tell you about the area. Say if you're passing an address off to somebody, you might want to identify, does this person live in a remote location? What are the roads that can get into that house or where this person is staying? Is the area, is it remote? How would you take the roads in? How could you be the most discreet? And maybe that's not really your job as an OSINT investigator, but maybe it is. Maybe you provide that information to the police, but they're probably going to do their own reconnaissance there as well. But any information that you can provide for location is really good. But I always go to my hacker mindset. So this is an example in a building, but you can absolutely apply this to people as well. So hopefully that makes sense. In the next video, we're going to talk about identifying geographical locations, which is really difficult to do. But we'll talk about some strategies and some potential games if you're interested in playing this. And then we can kind of just go from there. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Let's talk about identifying geographical locations. Let's say you have an image and you really don't know where the image is taken. There's no EXIF data. Nothing really tells you where this image was taken, where the person maybe in the image was, etc. You just have to kind of figure it out on your own. And there's a lot of different things that go into this to help identify geographical locations. We're going to skim the surface on this, and I'll show you why once we get into it. But let's take a picture. And you hear that a picture says 1,000 words. It really does. Here's a picture that I want to show you. This is a random picture that I found on the internet. Now let's say, just play pretend, that this picture was posted by somebody that we were investigating. They said, oh, look at my new car. I just got this, blah, blah, blah. All right. So say we're looking at this picture. What can we tell from this picture? What is out here? There's a lot of information. First of all, Let's start with the car. Okay, the car, if we look at it, we can zoom in a little bit. We can actually zoom in a lot more. If we look at it here, we're looking at a Cadillac. Okay, we have a Cadillac. We could identify where Cadillacs are sold, though it does not mean that this is not imported, but it gives us a hint. Also, what about this Cadillac? It is parked on the right side of the road. The steering wheel is on the left side of the vehicle. And so this tells us that the country that this car is parked in, most likely, is going to be a country that drives on the right side of the road. We can also see a license plate down here, though it doesn't say anything related to a state. So maybe this is not in the States. Maybe this is not in the United States. Maybe this is somewhere else. So this could be a hint as to who does their license plate like this. So this could be something to look into and research. Another thing that we see, well, we see snow on the ground. If there's snow on the ground, chances are that this picture was not taken in the southern hemisphere. There's a good chance that this is taken somewhere where it at least snows or potentially is just a cold location. We also have some architecture behind us, right? Look at the stuff that we see behind us. We see a church. Okay, we can identify that based on the cross that's right here. So this looks like some sort of church that has a tower built into it. Possibly, who knows what's over here? Possibly that's an extension of the church. This also looks like it's a bridge right here. We can see the different architecture for the bridge. We can see that there's water right here. We can also see that there are street signs. Now, we can't read the street signs, but if we could, maybe we could identify them, or maybe we can identify the different things based on the street signs, right? So maybe the architecture of the street signs or the architecture of the building. And there's a lot more to go off of here. So there's a lot that can be said or thought of just from this picture. Now, if you are curious, this is actually a place called German Church in Sweden. I've actually brought this over for you in a larger image size, but you can see that this is indeed the same church, same everything right on the water here. So we can identify those key features and we can research those features. Now, we could have taken the image that we had in front of us, this image, and we could have put this perhaps into a Google image search. We could have put this into Yandex. We could have put this in different places and see if we can identify this anywhere or the backgrounds. And we're going to have a challenge here in just a second. But before we do that, what I want to do is I want to come out of full screen here. And I want to show you this game. Now, this game is called GeoGuessr. This is a way to potentially get better at some of this. Basically, what you do is this will take you and put you into a location. And you have to identify the location. Now, you get one free play a day unless you pay for this. However, they do have a free GeoGuessr game as well if you scroll down just a little bit. So basically you could say, hey, I want to play for free. You come in here and play this free version, which is just a 2D map. And we get brought to a map and you get 5 rounds basically. So now we are given this location, which we have to kind of try to identify. Now there is a little bit of usage of the map and the details that they give you here that you can help identify where you might be. Like, I think this picture is kind of hard, but if you look at where you're pointing on your compass, you can identify the where the sun is facing, whether it's in front of you, behind you, left of you, and then you can identify your location. So this compass kind of gives hints. But we're on looks like a small road. We don't really see much in terms of the buildings. It doesn't look like it's, a very, I don't want to say rich area. It looks like it's, a little bit of unique architecture. It looks like perhaps there could be, I don't know if there's water nearby because of how this house is built. This could be something that's near the water, if you would ask me, but I'm not entirely certain. This looks like some sort of flood protection. And then we're on just this road. We can't really see the cars that much. I don't know if we can zoom in, but that would be what I want to look at. Are there any lines in the road? Are there any street signs? What can we identify? So from here, I mean, your guess is as good as anybody as to where this might be without using the compass location and identifier. I would guess this is somewhere on the water. I'm just going to throw this somewhere random over here and see if we can't figure this out. But we'll put this I'll say Virginia Beach area, even though I don't think it is. and it'll tell you where it is. And we were kind of okay. We were definitely, look, it's definitely an island. Obviously, it wasn't Virginia Beach, but here we were. We are by the water. And yeah, we can identify some features that say, hey, you are by the water. And then you come in, you play the next round, and you get another picture and you try to identify. So now when we see this, what can we identify? Well, we can identify that there is, we can identify the language here on the building. It looks like it could be Spanish, is my guess. I'm not a language expert by any means. You can look at the buildings that are right here as well and just see if you can identify any writings, any sort of vehicle, how they're driving. They're driving, it looks like this could be a one-way street, so this maybe isn't the best idea as for how this would be. But you could also look at the road signs, look at the different stoplights that are here as well, and the different surrounding areas and what we're looking at. So if I had to guess, this would be some sort of Spanish speaking country. Although I'm not sure, I would put this somewhere maybe in Spain over here, but I wouldn't know exactly where this would be. So I'll just say it's Madrid, and we'll guess. I was very wrong. it is in Santiago. Okay, so this is just an example, though. I'm not going to sit here and play it this whole time. But what I do want to share with you is a blog post that I think is fantastic based on this game. Now, this is an incredibly long blog post, and I'm going to make this bigger, that tells you the things to think about. And while it was based on this game, and while you can play this game and come in here and try to identify stuff, you can come in here and read this article. You don't have to read it fully, but it just gives you an indication. It tells you what letters are you looking for on street signs, like what different types of languages look like what. This is telling you how to look at it from the compass, but if you scroll through here, it talks about the different roads, how the North and South America have like this yellow line down the middle, where Europeans have looks like a white line down the middle. Looks like dashed lines for Sweden, Norway, Iceland. So this is something interesting. So if you see a road in your picture, also the rumble strips that we have here in the United States. And then this will go through, I mean, I'm scrolling and scrolling and I'm still at the top, but this goes through all kinds of information. What countries drive on the right side? What countries drive on the left side? What do the speed limit signs look like in different countries? This is fantastic that you can come through here and just say, okay, I see something. I'm going to try to research it based on this. And that's really the point I want to get at. I'm not trying to make you an expert by any means in guessing games here. But I do want you to think about how you could start looking at pictures differently. When you see this picture, I don't want you to see, oh, yeah, it's a car parked outside. I want you to see it as, oh, yeah, there's a car parked outside. Here's the license plate I'm seeing. It's in front of a church that has a bridge that's on the water that's in the snow. And start narrowing down where these locations can be. And this is what makes you a good investigator. You're not going to be able to, most times, just look at a picture and say, I know that location. But you can dump this picture maybe into a Google reverse image search, maybe into a Yandex, or go through the identifying marks that you see through a blog like this and really try to identify what it is you might be seeing. And this goes through, look, Japanese highways, Swedish highways, all different kinds of stuff. So if you're patient and you really try to figure this out like a good investigator, you'll have a lot more luck than just pointing and clicking. But there are some people on YouTube that I watch play this game, and they're absolutely amazing, where they can just see a picture and within seconds just click and know exactly where it's at. So I think that's very impressive. Anyway, that's it. What I want to do now is I'm going to show you a few pictures in the next video. I went on vacation recently, and I want to show you a few pictures. And I want you to determine where I was at in those pictures. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 pictures. I want you to determine what places I traveled to and where maybe I stayed. And you'll see that my OPSEC is not very great. So, all right, we'll see you in the next video when I give you your challenge. All right, let's play Where in the World is TCM Part 1. So let's take a look at these pictures. The first picture here is a picture of my wife and me. We're sitting on a bench somewhere and we are just taking a little selfie. And the next picture is somewhere from a rooftop. Now, this rooftop is the hotel that I stayed in during this trip. And then there's also this picture of where I was staying during the trip. So what I want you to do is I want you to take these 3 pictures and I want you to identify where I was at. Where was TCM? Okay, so this picture, I want you to tell me the location. What is this place called right here? In this picture, tell me what hotel I was staying in so that I could take this photograph. And then this picture, all I want you to do is tell me what city I was in. So that's your challenge. Tell me where I was at in the first picture, what hotel I was in the second picture, and the third picture, tell me what city I was in. Hope you're ready for this challenge. Best of luck to you. I'll catch you in the next video as we cover how to find the answers to this. All right, did you find me? Let's see how well you did. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the first picture, and I'm going to go ahead and move over to Google, and I'm going to start with a Google image search. So I'm going to take this picture and I'm just going to drag and drop it over here, and we're going to see what happens on the Google image search. And Google image did a very great job of picking me up. So this is absolutely correct where I'm at, by the way. This is Copley Square in Boston, Massachusetts. All right, so if you come here, I've got the picture. It says here's Copley Square. So it says possible related search to Copley Square. Let's just take a quick picture of this or a quick look at this and go to images and see what it shows you. And look, this one wasn't that hard, was it? A quick reverse image search. Even though the image was not found anywhere else, it still shows you that, hey, this is Copley Square. And if you look at this picture and I open the other picture back up, you can see that sure enough, we were sitting right here in the park bench in front of Copley Square. Okay, so with that information in mind, let's try to look for the second location. Now, the second location was actually taken off of the rooftop of the hotel that I was in. So that's why I said, hey, go ahead and give it a go. Try to find the hotel that I was staying in. So let's go ahead and just drag and drop this and see if it works in our old Google search. And all we get out of this is what? Commercial. We don't get anything of use. Let's go ahead and try looking at Yandex as well. So I'm going to just go to images and drag and drop, and we'll just see if it does anything for us. Now we can look at the EXIF data here, but the EXIF data does not exist or it's been stripped out. So we're looking at this and let's see if we can identify anything in this picture. So this is saying Melbourne. Given that it's all on the same trip and we have that knowledge, it's not likely to be Melbourne. We can click through here and see if there's anything in here that might be of interest. It's just giving us a bunch of city skylines. So this time, the reverse image search isn't really working out in our favor. It's trying, but it's not really doing anything. And if we close out of this and go back to the image that we have, it tries to point out some things to us, like saying, hey, I know what this building is. And you could try to click on that and see. But even then, it doesn't look like it's finding the right stuff here. All right, so this looks like there are buildings in Russia, which this is a Russian website. So I'm assuming it's going to try to look there first, but it's just not. It's not picking up the right location. At least it doesn't look at the image that we're seeing. So with that being said, let's go to the image itself. I want to look at the image one more time because we haven't done any investigation on the image. I'm going to zoom in as much as possible. What are some things that we can see from this image? We can maybe make out that we're in a city, right? We're in some sort of big city. We don't know where the big city is, but it definitely looks like there's skyscrapers, there's tall buildings, and there's some words back here that I can't really read here. I can't really read that either. I see the something, and I see, I can't tell what that is. I do see some interesting stuff, though. First of all, I see the Westin Hotel, so that could be interesting. I see a sign that says 95 to New York. So this is saying 95. It looks like that says south to me. It's very hard to read. But this is 95 south. So if I'm 95 south, if I go look at a map and look on the highway, Interstate 95 runs down from north to south in the United States on the East Coast. So I would have to be somewhere above New York in order for this to happen. So that could narrow it down. It also looks like there's an American flag flying right here, so a good indicator that we're probably in the United States. Now, you can also see cars are parked on the right side of the road over here, which is another indicator. And then this architecture of this building looks older. We don't know really there's this building looks like it stands out in the fact that it's older. Comparatively, most of the architectures of these other buildings look like they stand out as maybe newer. So, with that being said, and having the clue or the hint that we were in Boston before, we're above New York. What might that tell us? That might tell us something. Oh, and look, there's a Prudential building. Okay, so Prudential building, the Westin. So if we're looking at this, we need to be facing the Prudential building from this side, and we need to be right next to what appears to be the Westin. In order to kind of get this. So where is there a Prudential building and where is there a Westin? So the first thing I might do is I might go out to Google and I might just try to say, where is the Prudential skyscraper? Let's see if we can find that anywhere. Prudential Tower skyscraper in Boston, Massachusetts. So that's pretty good. So that looks potentially to be our building, right? That looks pretty darn close to what we saw here. So I'm going to go back to the picture one more time. That looks like the building to me. That's spot on. So that's definitely the building. So what I think I want to look at is the Westin, and the Westin in Boston, Massachusetts. Okay. Let's see what they have for us. They have Boston, the waterfront. They also have Boston and Copley Place. Let's go ahead and look at Boston and Copley Place. Since we already know that I was somewhere in Copley Place, let's go ahead and see if we can actually look at the location. All right. So we've got this right here. And what does that look like? So that is Copley Place, right? So we'll actually here is the Westin. So let's see if we can get to a street satellite view right here. Let me try to get down here. This might not work for us. Let me do one more thing. Let me try to just go back. We'll do the Westin Copley, and then we're going to put this into a search for maps here. Let's see if we can't get a better view of this. All right, so here's the Westin Copley. Here's Copley Square, by the way. Okay, so if we could see the Westin Copley in front of us, depending on how it looks in front of us, could be of interest. So let's try to navigate satellite down here and see what we can see. All right, so if we look, that picture that was taken was the bench was right here. And here's the Copley Square. Now, if we look, this building right here, let's see if we can get on the ground. Let's get right here and see how this looks. All right. So there's that picture, right? There's the Copley Square. If we turn around, look, here's the Westin. And if we face this direction, there's the building that should have the American flag flying on it. Yes, it does. The Prudential building's out here. Here's that New York sign right here. And that might not be 90, might be 95. That might be a 90 West sign, actually. I could have been wrong on the 95 there. So still, we identified the Westin and the Prudential building, and then we were able to correlate, since we were close to the Westin where we might be. If we turn around to where there's a rooftop right here, what is this? This building right here is called the Fairmont Copley, and that is where we stayed on our vacation. So this was part 2. Hopefully you were able to figure that out and find that. Hopefully you found it challenging as well, but you can see, click right here, the Copley Plaza, the Westin Copley, Fairmont Copley, there you go. So and there's the building. So, okay. So that's number 2. Number 3, I tried to throw you for a little bit of a loop. So here's number 3. This looks a little bit different than the other 2, especially in the skyscrapers and everything else. What can we see from this picture? And I'm going to skip reverse image searching. You can try that if you want. If you did, that's great. But I'm trying to take out what I can see. So I see maybe some art down here. Looks like there's some art. It looks like potentially, well, this car's parked on the left side of the road, but these cars are parked on the right side of the road. So It's hard to say where this image was taken for sure. This is definitely a larger city for sure. There's some color to it. There's not really a lot telling us besides maybe some of the architecture that's up here, what the design might be, and where this might have been taken. But the one thing that maybe stands out to me, and it's really hard to see back there what that reads, but this one reads PSFS. And that's the only thing I can make out. I make out some architecture. It looks like there's a blend of maybe older and newer architecture, but without being able to see anything else, my best guess is we're in a major city somewhere that possibly drives on the right side of the road, but I do not pick up anything else. PSFS is the only thing here that would be standing out to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and just search PSFS as a building and see if I can identify where this was at. So if we go back to Google, we do PSFS, and that is in Philadelphia. So let's do PSFS building. You could see that it says, hey, we're in Philadelphia. Let's look at images. And that looks to me like the same building that we're seeing. So, yes, this image here, if you were able to find this and look this up, and of course, there are different ways, by the way, to do this, but this is in Philadelphia. Just because I'm showing you one way doesn't mean that you couldn't have found it another way, or even you could have said, hey, I lived in Philly or I've been through Philly. I know exactly where that's at. You have opportunities here to be able to use what you know as well. But these are just different ways that I would look at pictures for information. And that's really what this challenge is about, to look at pictures for information and try to identify what you can do. So number 1 was pretty easy. Number 3 was pretty easy. I thought number 2 was a little bit more challenging because you had to identify the actual building that the picture was taken from and not just what city you were in. So hopefully you found that a little bit more challenging on that side. So that is it for this section and this lesson. We're going to go ahead and move on from here onto email OSINT. So I'll catch you over in the next section.
Okay, so there's one tool that is not included in the course that I wanted to include on YouTube, and it's a pretty creepy OSINT tool, and I want to show that to you. So it's going to be in the description below. However, if you want to find it easily, you can also just type in YouTube, like I have here, the creepiest OSINT tool, and you should find the creepiest OSINT tool to date. And watch this video before you move on to the next one, because it just shows you what we are capable of doing just from an image, and how one picture can identify a bunch of other pictures and a bunch of information maybe you didn't even know existed about you or about your resource out there. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next video in this course.
Welcome to the email OSINT section. We're going to talk about discovering email addresses. And this is something that I do on a weekly basis. So I'm going to show you the most common tools that I use to actually look up email addresses and try to find people, and what you can do to kind of verify email addresses. So I'll show you some of my favorite tools and concepts. And this is something that I do because not only for OSINT and doing it for investigative type work, but think about sales. If I'm trying to find a lead, or I'm trying to find multiple leads within an organization, I have to figure out where the emails are, who the people I'm trying to email are. So maybe I'll Google them and say, who is the CISO or Chief Information Security Officer for this company? And I might find that it's Bob Jones. And we go look up Bob Jones and we say, okay, well, how do I get Bob Jones's contact information? Can I find it via Google? Maybe it's out there in the public, but maybe we have to dig a little deeper. Maybe we have to kind of do some guesstimation and see if we can figure it out. So that's what we're going to do today is look at the email addresses, formats, and try to determine if we can find some emails. So let's go ahead and move over to the Kali Linux machine that I've got. And the first website is one of my favorites. So hunter.io. You just come to hunter.io. You get like 50 or 100 free searches a month. I don't remember what it is. It's a fair amount. You can come here and basically just type in a company name. So like say I want to type in TCM security, TCM-sec, and you can see TCM security here. We get one result on the email address. So we'll click it and see what happens here. And looks like we have like an info at tcm-sec.com. It tells us, hey, there's 5 sources that identify this. So we see tcm-sec.com. There's an about, blogs. This is where they're finding it, okay? A better example, maybe something that has more users, like Tesla. Tesla has 468 users. If we come in here and we look, well, we can see that they have a pattern identified here. So their pattern they're identifying is first initial, last name at tesla.com. And that's really what we want to see. And then we can gather email addresses here if we want. But say like we knew Bob Jones. Again, going back to that example, Bob Jones. So maybe Bob Jones works at Tesla. Maybe his email would be bjones at tesla.com. So it's something to think about. Now, we can sign up and get actual information here. You should be able to sign up with a Gmail account. Sometimes this does not work depending on the country that you are in. So be cognizant, you might have to use a different email address, but I just tried signing up with a Gmail account that I have on here and it worked just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and try to log in. I'm going to sign in with Google with what's already here and just now I'm logged in. So we can go back now and try searching Tesla again. And you'll see that the results actually come back. So we get information here now. Let me make this a little bit bigger. We get information as to, okay, here's the vice president. This is the vice president's email address. Project development manager. Maybe you want to talk to somebody in human resources. So you can click here and go to human resources. And then here are the different human resources emails that are here. So, and then the sources that they found these email addresses. So this isn't a particular person in HR, but it's still human resources email addresses. So this looks like it's probably for Hong Kong. This is for Berlin. This is Gigafactory. So they have different email addresses based on where they are. Now, if you looked up TCM security here, you're really not going to find much on us because we don't have a ton of email addresses out there, but I think that we can find more in other ways. Now, so we only get so many usages here. We'll just keep thinking about this as we move forward. So hunter.io, great resource. They have plugins if you want them. I think it's a fantastic place to look. Phonebook.cz is the next resource I want to show you. This one is fantastic. Let's start with tcm-sec.com and see. So we're going to go tcm-sec.com and we're going to search email addresses here. So they do domains and URLs as well, which I think is awesome. But let's just search for email address. See if anything comes back. No results. Okay, that's okay. Let's try Tesla and see what comes back there. Okay, a lot more. So we get quite a few email addresses. We could see Elon Musk all over the place. We got Elon-Musk, Elon. We've got eMusk over here. And we get a ton of emails. Look at this. So what's nice about this is we can sit here and try to identify what the possible email addresses are. So again, first initial last name looks like it's showing up quite a bit. Outside of maybe like the Elon Musks of the world, we're getting a bunch of mostly first initial last names in here. So I think that's pretty spot on with this. The other thing that we can do is we could utilize this list. Say we're trying to do something called credential stuffing, which we'll talk about in the next section, actually, when we talk about breach credentials. But say we're trying to gather a bunch of usernames and test and see if we can log in with those usernames anywhere. Or maybe password spraying, not so much the credential stuffing, but password spraying, where we take all these usernames and we just throw it at a login form and say, hey, summer 2020 exclamation point. See if that logs into any of these accounts, and you would be surprised. It happens quite a bit. So this is valuable information, even if we don't know exactly. Maybe we're not just hunting for one email. Maybe we're hunting for an entire domain. This is a great way to get free entire domains with a quick copy and paste capability. Like we have the Tesla here, we can export the CSV from hunter.io, but you only get so many results that you can export into a CSV. Here you get a bunch. There's no guarantee these are all valid, but it's still information. Information is what we want. This is all we're trying to gather, is as much information as possible. So these are all potential email addresses for tesla.com. I think it's a great resource. Now, we could also use something like Voila, no bear. Now this one, you can get 50 more leads for free. I'm not going to show you. It's the same kind of deal as 100.io. They're showing you how to utilize it here. Basically, you can just search for people and see to try to find their email addresses. There is one I want to show you that I do use and I have quite a bit of success with, and that is called Clearbit. And Clearbit has to be used in Chrome. So I'm going to bring up this here. Clearbit has to be used in Chrome. So you can download the Chrome extension for Clearbit. And all you would have to do is go to Google. Let me log in really quick. And then I'm going to just select the free account. We get so many searches, 100 emails a month. So basically, you're going to search for Clearbit Connect, and you would just say, hey, Clearbit Connect. I'll put a link down below, by the way. But Clearbit Connect is awesome. You'll see why here in a second once I authorize this. Okay, we're going to come down here, acknowledge, probably give out our firstborn. And then now we're going to say, hey, I want to find emails. And here's all different kinds of things that we can sit here and search for. You can see TCM securities in here. These are some searches that I've done. These aren't any clients of mine. These are just searches that I've done in the past, maybe looking for information or looking for possible leads or anything. So if I come in here and I say, hey, I want to look for TCM security, you could type that in. I'm going to just click on TCM security. And look what it discovered that the others didn't. It discovered me. Okay, and if I click on me, look, it says heath@tcm-sec.com. Where did that come from? And then look, it has my LinkedIn right here as well. That's amazing. That's awesome. And it says here, you can email Heath. Just click this button. And then it's also got Rizwan. Rizwan's on my sales team. Look, it's got Rizwan@tcm-sec.com. What does that tell you? That tells you that we're using a first name basis for our email addresses. It's awesome. Now let's come in here and maybe we want to look at Tesla. Maybe let's try Tesla one more time. Maybe we're looking for the CISO of Tesla if Tesla has a CISO. You could come in here and look, like Elon Musk is right here, obviously CEO, but you could come in here and maybe go by role, and they have different roles in here. So CEO, let's see if we can find any sort of CISO. I don't see one, but I do see information technology. So maybe we can find somebody in the information technology department or IT department. And then here we go. We've got quite a few IT people. Here's a CIO. This could be somebody of interest that we might want to reach out to. And we could just scroll through this list and find people. So say we want to reach out to the CIO. Just click on this. We get first initial last name, just like we thought we would. We get this person's LinkedIn page. We get their location, website. This is awesome. Awesome, awesome. So I typically will start with a Google search. If I'm trying to hunt something down, I will start with a Google search. I will say, who is in this role at this company? If I'm looking for a specific person at a company, then I will go to phonebook.cz or hunter.io, try to identify the formatting of the email, and then try to find that person or guesstimate that. Once we get to that point, I try not to burn through these Clearbits unless I need to, but Clearbit is very good at identifying this. Once we get to that point, we can take this email, say like this this email, or we'll even try a different email. I'll show you a couple. But we could take this and we can go try to verify this. So there is a website called Email Hippo. You can go to tools.verifyemailaddress.io. And all you have to do is type in an email address here. Sometimes you can get false positives if they're good or bad. Here, I typed in this email address a couple of times and just got a bad result. This is an email address that does not exist. Now, let's try an email address that we saw, info@tcm-sec.com. See if it works. Result is okay. So it says, yeah, this email address works. So we're verifying that this is up. So say that you get somebody and you see that they have a potential email address, you can come here and try to verify it first and see if it works before you go fire off an email. You don't even have to fire off an email. You don't have to do anything or interact. So this is the benefit. Like if you're from a sales perspective and you're doing OSINT here, this is the benefit of not having to email, waste your time, get it rejected. You can come in here and just validate. If you're doing an investigation, you don't want to interact with the person or company that you're investigating. You want to come in here and just verify without any interaction. This is the way to do it. Same thing with this website here, emailchecker.net/validate, email-checker.net/validate. Say, hey, checking the email. I put the same email address here. You can see it says bad. We could try again with info@tcm-sec.com and see if that works. And it says okay. So again, this is doing a great job. There are possibilities of false positives. There are so many searches that you can do per month on these, I do believe. They have APIs, which is nice if you want to automate this or script this out. But I think this is fantastic. This is great stuff. Now, there are plenty of other ways to verify email addresses. In the next section, we'll talk about that even more as we talk about breach data. Because if somebody shows up in a data breach, guess what? That email address has been used in the past. If you look at something like a Have I Been Pwned, which we'll talk about in the next section, and they show up, guess what? That person's email address has existed. So we're trying to verify if an email address exists, who that address might belong to, etc. Now, this is has been from a business perspective. Some of this hunting down of emails may be more difficult to do if you're trying to find a specific individual. That's where breach data comes into play in a lot of this research. And what I'm going to show you in the next section, we'll try to hunt down individuals with maybe having loose pieces of information like a name or a username or something along those lines. Breach data can come in handy very, very well. So this is kind of scratching the surface. Now, there's one last thing I want to show you, one last little tip and trick. Do not underestimate forgot passwords. Do not underestimate them. Let's go to Google, for example. Right now, I am logging in under an account that is please don't hack me, sir, please. So it's please don't hack me, sir, PLZ, I do believe. I'm going to go ahead and try hitting next on that. Okay, so first of all, it said, hey, welcome. Hey, what does this mean? This means that we have a valid account here. That's great. This is validating that this Gmail account exists. Here's something else. We can use this to tie to potentially another account or help validate. Say we know that this email belongs to somebody that's harassing somebody else. We don't know who this person is. They're using this spoofed email, but maybe we have a hunch or maybe we don't. Maybe we just want to try to get more data. You can come to forgot password and it's going to say, what's the last password you remember using? I don't know. Let's try another way. You come down here and it says, hey, let me make this bigger. Google will send a verification code to H. And it says, look, it shows you the rest of the digits here. And then at TC here. That would give you a pretty good indication if you're tracking who your subject is, that this email could tie to somebody else. Look, this is heath@tcm-sec.com. Okay, so this email belongs to me. This is tying back to me. Now you have another point here. So if you knew about this email address and now you have the link, the connection to guarantee that this person, this is evidence right here. Say you were doing something, which we'll learn about again in the next section, where you're looking through breach data, you find a username that matches this email address and also matches this email address, but people can reuse usernames. There could be multiple people who use the same username. So you need to verify or some link. This would be a proof of a link between those, a pretty strong proof if you ask me. If you can say, hey, I identified 2 email addresses with the same username, I did an account recovery, came in here and saw that this had this same first character and first domain name, I think that's a pretty strong correlation. So things to think about, wheels to be spinning. Try to identify email addresses in any way possible. We'll cover this more in depth in the next section. And I'm really excited because password hunting is one of my favorite things. So let's go ahead and move on to the next section when we talk about password OSINT. Welcome to this section on password OSINT. Password OSINT is one of my absolute favorite things to do. I've given talks at conferences in the past on hunting down breach credentials and using credential stuffing and doing password spraying, but there's so much information that we can get from just looking up passwords from an OSINT perspective. Now, when we're talking about password OSINT, we're talking about going and looking for breach credentials or credentials that have shown up due to breaches or data breaches. So you can think of like the LinkedIn breach or the Adobe breach. All these breaches, if there are credentials that are dumped out, a lot of times they'll find their way to the internet, they'll find their way to databases, and then we can use those databases to search through them and try to find information about either the target we're after, whether it's an individual or organization, and then we go and see what information we can identify. It's more than passwords, and I'll show you that here in a second. Now, there are some great websites and tools that we can utilize for this. For now, I'm going to kind of just show you the web format. Again, we're not going to use any tools until later on in the course. But for now, I'll kind of show you how we do the web searching and what we can do there. Before we get into that, I kind of want to show you just a brief example of what information we can find. So this is a little tool that I wrote, and it basically goes through and just looks through a database that is local. Now we're going to show databases that are out on the web and are easier, faster to search through. But this is great just for something if you want a quick search on a database, you want to look up breach credentials. Now, I went ahead and just searched for breach credentials for Tesla. We'll cover this later in the course on how to use this tool. But here, I can identify some information about Tesla. Now, we talked about email OSINT and identifying email types, right? So we could see here that for Tesla, we're seeing a lot of first name dot last name. So it's possible first name, last name is the usage or format over at Tesla. Although we do see some Shark, which looks like could be just like a S Hark, or maybe that's actually Shark. We could see different things here where there may be some different formats with Tesla. So what we notice too is sometimes as companies grow, sometimes the companies start off with one format and then migrate to other formats as they get bigger. The other things that we can identify though are who's been involved in a breach. Here on the left side is the username or the email, and then on the right side is the password. And I keep like hovering over this one here because this is a repeat offender. If I'm looking for information on a specific company or a person and I see that their passwords change only ever so slightly, or they have the same password over and over and over in a breach, then guess what? I could have a pretty good assumption that that password might work somewhere else, or some variation of this password might work somewhere else. So it's always good to check these out and see if you can identify patterns, whether it be username pattern or any sort of password pattern, anything like that. Even as we scroll down, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here. Yeah, it's a terrible password, but it's always something to look into and see if there's any sort of repeat offenders. Now, we're going to cover this more in depth in the next video as we start talking about hunting down breach credentials. I just kind of want to show you an overview of what we're actually looking at, where these come from, why we're looking at that. And then in the next video, we're going to cover this even more in depth. So I'll catch you over in the next video. Okay, let's talk about hunting breach credentials and let's get hands-on. Now, before we get started, I know I stressed this in the beginning of the course. I'm going to stress this again. What I'm going to show you here could change. Now, I released a course about a year ago, which was on ethical hacking. We talked about breach credentials, and I utilized a website called WeLeakInfo. WeLeakInfo was then eventually shut down, and I got all kinds of emails saying, hey, this is shut down. I don't know what to do. There's more out there, okay? There's always more out there. What I'm showing you is the methodology. I could show you on a specific website, which I'm going to do. That website could go down tomorrow. We never know. But what you need to retain is the thought process and the methodology behind what's about to happen. From there, you could take that and utilize it elsewhere. So if a website does go down, you still have the same thoughts, why you're doing it, and why you're thinking about it. So let's go ahead and move over to a website now. So I want to take you to a website called dhash. Now this is dhash.com. I do not expect you to be able to follow along at this point because this costs money. Okay, it's $5 for a week. It's $150 for a year. This is only, it used to take credit card. They only now take Bitcoin, I do believe, or some sort of cryptocurrency. Absolutely worth it, in my opinion. Even get a week. Get a week, see if you like it. It's amazing. There's going to be tools I show you later on in the course that will go through and we can do it locally, like the one I just ran in the last video. I ran breach parse, right? This is something that I put together and set up, and it's free, but the database isn't maintained. It's a slow search. I don't get the results back as instantly, and I can't tie it to as many data points as a website like this can. I think this website's great. Now let's talk about what dhash can do now that I'm logged in. We have the ability to search by, let me make this a little bit bigger. We have the ability to search by email, username, IP address, name, address, phone number, VIN. Okay, think about this. Say we know a email address. Okay, we know an email address. Say it's bob at tesla.com. We're not going to search this yet. We take Bob, and we know Bob, it has an account, and we're looking for him. We search him. Bob shows up, and we see Bob shows up, and we see maybe his name, like Bob Jones or something like that, shows up. Maybe something that he's been leaked in has his address. Or maybe there was an IP address tied to the client you're looking for or the person you're looking for. This can all be identified. What if Bob has a username? It's like Bob Rocks 123. Okay, well we can search that username in here and see if that username has repeated itself at all, which is great. We could search by password. So say Bob's password was BobRocks123. We could search that password, and if it's unique enough, then maybe we can actually do some advanced searching. Like if we go back to the example from last time, like this last video, we saw this 907DADE814. We could put that into a search engine and see if that comes back to something else. Maybe that comes back to a user that is not at a tesla.com, but maybe it's like Bob at gmail.com. And then guess what? Now we have Bob's personal account, or now we have Bob tied to another email account, especially if we search by name or something that we can tie them together. We need to start being able to relate other accounts to each other. We can do that with hashing. We can do that with passwords. There's a lot of things that we can do, and we want to start tying this together. As a real world example, when I am looking at an organization and I'm doing research on hashing, or I'm doing research on breach credentials, I'm trying to think, okay, first, if my client is tesla.com, I might come in here and search at tesla.com, and I might come see how many results are in here. Let's see what happens. Okay, here's George at tesla.com. George has been in a shared data, so there's no actual any details here besides a potential username, a name, email. Okay, same thing with safety. We'd have to scroll down and see if we can find something that, okay, here's Adobe. Now, Adobe will have there's actually a Bob at Tesla. Bob at Tesla has a hash password here. Okay, so now we can say, well, first of all, we can go see if we can figure out what this hash is, which we'll talk about in a second. We can also go and say, okay, Bob, does Bob exist anywhere else? Does this hash exist anywhere else on this website? Can we tie it to another account that maybe, even if we don't crack the password, then we can say, okay, this ties to Bob at gmail.com. So like I would note this down and I would take this and copy it. So from a real world example, I would take all the data that I see on this website. I would collect all of the passwords, all of the usernames, everything. So like Tesla 9, all of this. I want to know what the passwords are. I want to know who the people are. I want to know all the data. Because if I could start finding patterns, if I could start putting things together, maybe I can even relate these back to their personal email accounts like we're talking about. And then I could see password patterns there or other passwords and just start tying this down. Because my goal is to break into an organization. If I'm doing a pen test, my goal is to break into an organization. So I'm going to take that data, and if I can find other passwords related to a personal account, I'm not going to go attempt to break into a personal account, but I will take that data and I will put it together and maybe try to break into their work email account with those passwords of that information. This can tie to an investigation as well. If you're hunting down an individual, you're trying to tie them to other accounts, this is incredibly useful. If you can find their data in a breach database and have a password, and that password's unique, you can search it, maybe find them somewhere else. You find an IP address, you find a name. There are often IP addresses in here, which we can tie to a location possibly. And see, here's that 9078 or DADE 814. We could take this and maybe search it and see if it comes back anything. Who knows? Shark at Tesla. Okay. Shark at mail.ru. Look, this is a new email address. We didn't know about this one before. And look, it does us a favor. We searched DADE, but here's the capitalized. We didn't search for capitalized. We're not searching specific. Okay, and now we're getting more information. Look, here's one for Dropbox. Okay, so it tells you where this is coming from and how you can tie it in. If we can get any sort of name out of this, any sort of anything, that would be amazing. We can get a person's name or IP address and we can start tying them down. But when you're doing different searches like this, you need to start almost, like in the investigations where they have like the the red yarn and it's going from one pinpoint to another, you kind of have to zigzag that back and forth and really try to tie this down. And you'll see that when we get into reporting, how you might take one individual and really just see like a password tied to an account, tied to this. And this was the exact methodology that we took to get to that point. Because when you write a report, you want to make sure that the investigative person, or the say you're handing off to the police or whatever, you want to make sure that the person that is doing what you did, or they can replicate what you did with ease, and there's no question about it. So this is some of the searching that we can do. Now, if we come to dehashed, again, we can come here and we can search by email, username, name, anything. So you can put your name in here. I mean, if you want to search on here, I think it's great. You can come through here and just search for your name. Let's go back. Let's search Tesla again. I saw a hash in there. The Adobe hashes are kind of interesting. They're not the easiest to pick up, but let's see. Let's find this Adobe hash. So let's say we get a hash like this. We could try to identify what this hash is. We can try to crack this hash. We can see if it's been cracked somewhere else. This hash, as of right now, we have no idea. But we know Bob at Tesla.com. We can maybe paste this in here first of all and see if it ties back to anything. And there's 22 results back. I would probably be looking for somebody that has this password with the name of Bob. It's probably not going to be like a Brett or a Michael. We might want to see if we can find another account somewhere else, but these are all tying down to a hash from Adobe. So depending on how they were hashing this data, we might not find anything else of interest. But you can see all the things here, all the different opportunities that are here for us to just do research and tie down information. Now we can go to a website called hashes.org. And if we come here, we have the capability to actually try to search for this hash. So we could search hashes and see if we can find it. So you can come in here and just paste it. And again, it doesn't do a great job, in my opinion, with the Adobe hashes. Sometimes they crack, but a lot of times it says it can't find them. Oops, there we go. Let's try hitting a search here. Okay, so it says not a valid hash. Now, if you put this into Google as a search, you can see it didn't come back with anything either. So we want to make sure that when we're searching this, we try all options. There is an Adobe database that if you do put in a hash and it does show up, there's a GitHub Adobe database that will actually show up here. So with that being said, this is kind of what I want you to start thinking about when we're hunting down breach credentials. How can I take a person or company that I'm looking into? So if you have a company, you can just go at companyname.com or .net or whatever it is, search in here, see how they show up. If you have a person, maybe a personal email account, if you can find that person, if you know their email account, you come in here and say bob@gmail.com. Maybe you don't know what their email address is. Then maybe you come here to the main page, you go, okay, I'm going to look for a name. I'm going to look for Bob Jones and search for that. And then you start taking this and trying to find the patterns. If you know Bob lives somewhere, maybe you could find an address for Bob, or maybe Bob lives in like Arizona. You could search Bob Jones and see if Bob shows up, and then kind of take it from there. And there is some search operators that you can utilize. You can see Bob Jones is taking forever. You can put this in quotations and search it again, and kind of narrow down your results here. So if we click on this, you could see like here's a name of we got a lot of results, but here's the name Bob Jones. This is a very common name. So, but you could see like if we're trying to look this down, we can start searching and adding operators in here and trying to see if we can figure out to tie a username or something to them. So again, get your wheel spinning. Don't rely on just dehashed, but just rely on thinking about this. This is the thing you should be thinking about. Again, dehash could go down tomorrow. But if you're thinking about it in the way that the credentials and the information can be interwoven, remember that red yarn again, that's really what I want you to take away from this. So we're going to do another video on this. I'm going to show you some more, I guess, tools that are out there and some other things that you can do, offer alternatives to this, and then we'll wrap up this section. So I'll catch you over in the next video. Okay, hunting breach credentials part 2. Let's dive right into this. So I'm going to show you a few websites. These websites here, the first three I'm going to show you, and actually let me reorganize this a little bit. The first three I'm going to show you are sites that I am not entirely sure on. I do believe they're valid. I believe they're legitimate. I believe they are also databases. I think Dhash is the best. These also have their own searching as well. Now, WeLeak Info was absolutely amazing. WeLeak Info, again, as I said in an earlier video, got shut down. This is somebody that brought it back up. I don't know for sure if it's the same database, what's been brought back. It appears to be almost identical as to what was there. They do have a $5 trial, so it might be worth something that you can go in and just check this out. Same thing with this Leak Check and this SNUSpace. They're both great websites that I'll put down in the description. You can check them out, kind of feel it out, see which one you like the best. Again, $2.99 for a sign up here. And this one, I believe, is fairly cheap as well, and even has maybe some free searching up to 100 searches or something like that. So you could definitely check through these, see if there's anything here that you would like to look at, and then go from there. So I just want to offer alternatives in case something does happen to Dhash. I don't think it will. From there, one of the most well-known websites out there is Have I Been Pwned? Now, this is great. You know, we know about the shark at tesla.com, right? So we get this shark at tesla.com. We come here and look for it. Has it been pwned? Has it shown up anywhere? Oh, yes, it has. It's been shown in 5 breach sites and 1 paste. Now, this will tell you, okay, it's been in these different pastes here and where the breaches happened. Okay, and then here's a paste that you were found in. This is great for yourself. This is great if you want to kind of search through this and see if you can find information specific to the target that you're looking for. Have I Been Pwned is a great resource. What Have I Been Pwned is not going to tell you is it's not going to specifically tell you the password related to that account. But it's a good resource to identify whether an account has actually shown up in a database. This is actively updated with the latest and greatest database dumps and everything else. So this is awesome. You could set up, there's an API for this. You could set up alerting. So there's a notify me if your account shows up. I always recommend this to clients to put in their domain. And in case anybody shows up, it's just another name that, if it shows up in a breach, you have to kind of, work around that. So I think these are great. This is a fantastic website and something that should be mentioned in any basic sort of OSINT investigation. Now, this last one, Scala, I don't know how to say it. I've never have. This is put together by Hyperion, who is Alejandro or Alex. He is the founder of Hyperion Gray. This is a great website. It's not going to be as thorough. It's not going to have as much information as, say, a Dhashed, but it does have information. You can see right here, there's who knows how many pages. You can come through here and there's the domain will say, hey, this is where the leak came from. Like there's collections of different passwords, a LinkedIn breach on this one. There's different types here that you can look through. This one's Fitbit. So you can come in here and say, okay, I want to search for a specific user or a specific email. So we could say like email, and then we can do shark at tesla.com and see what happens. And look, you could see shark at tesla.com came back. There looks like a hash password here. We could run that through hashes.org. We can run that through Google, see if it pops back with anything. Here we do get a clear text password. So we can search by email. We could search by domain. Say you want to know anybody that was involved in the LinkedIn.com breach. Okay, and that might not pull back anything. Let's go back to, so let's see, LinkedIn. Maybe I put it in wrong. We'll try one more time. Or maybe there were too many search results. So we could try LinkedIn.com, and maybe we want to know a password of 12345. Let's try a search like that. There you go. It's possible that I had too many results there too. So anybody that potentially had a password of like 12345 or something showed up here, even though we're getting a bunch of X's here and nulls, we could see also that we have email addresses. Actually, this showed up as email as password, so it might have searched that a little bit differently. But this is the way that you could search through and kind of look and, I guess, kind of grep through this information, if that makes sense. So if you're looking for, let's go back to the email of shark@tesla.com. This is similar to the same thing that we were doing before, right? We could see if this password showed up anywhere else. So we want to put the same logic into our searching. So this password show up anywhere. And it does. Look, this just identified a second account for us, shark@mail.ru. You see same password, and then here. It's not, again, as thorough. Remember, we are missing the account with the DADE in all lowercase. We're not finding that. We would have to kind of figure that out or see if it showed up somewhere else. But now we have another email address. Now we can come in here and we can say email and say, okay, there's shark@mail.ru. All right, so it's going to find other sharks, but for the most part, look at this. Shark@mail.ru has been caught a bunch of times, right? And this is interesting in the sense of what's happened here. So this is the kind of data back and forth that you would want to go through and try to search. Now there is an API for this. You have the capability. It shows you the API here to search. We have the capability to run this through tools like hate mail is a tool that we can use, and I'll show you this later in the course when we get into the actual tools section. But this is a fantastic database just to come quickly search. I recommend putting in your own email address or a password that you use and see if it comes through here. It doesn't hurt to see if you've been owned in any of these databases beyond the have I been pwned. So it's always good to know that. And this is another great website, just another resource. Usually you're going to have to pay for anything above and beyond. So that's why Dhash has a paywall. That's why all of these sites you see up here have a paywall. This is as probably close as it's going to get to it being free and having a nice little area where you could at least do a quick search on an email address or a domain and see if you can find anything. So again, if you're looking for like tesla.com, you come in here and say @tesla.com and see what you can find in here. Okay. And then you can see what comes back for anything with @tesla.com. Although we'll get a little bit of tesla.com at Yahoo. We'll get some of those, but we can weed those out, maybe find some other things in here that we haven't seen before, etc. So this is nice. This is a good way to just go through it. And again, the red yarn, think about the interweaving and the moving pieces and how you can tie everything together. That's the drum I'm beating over and over, because there's so much information that you can gather from a breach database if you're willing to connect the dots. You have to be willing to connect the dots and really think through it. And if you can do that, there's I don't want to say endless opportunities, but a lot of opportunities out there to gather really good information. So that is it for this section. Hopefully you found it useful and you kind of understand at least the concepts behind it and where we can apply this. This goes beyond just stuffing credentials and putting it into trying to break into environments, though this is used a lot. A lot of the hacks that we see, they come from this. There was something on the news not even that long ago about a baby monitor getting broken into. It was due to finding a breach credential and running it through the baby monitor and doing credential stuffing. You can gather this information, and we've seen this information go out in attempted phishing emails. There was one not that long ago, maybe within the last year, that was a porn email. It was saying, hey, I know what kind of porn you watch, and this is how I know because this is your password. And all they did was look up email addresses in these breached accounts and say, hey, send me money or I'm going to tell everybody because this is your password. And all they have to do is find a few people to say, oh my God, that's my password. I'm going to go ahead and just pay them money. And it's just a scam. So these can be used in many different ways. Of course, can be used in investigations. We could tie this to people. We could tie this to IP addresses. And we can really put together a thorough investigation, uncover other accounts that we didn't even know about, tie those into even more of our investigation, find maybe usernames, add that into our investigation, and keep going further. So the more data that we can collect, the more artifacts that we can collect, the better off we're going to be in the long run. So that's really our goal, is to collect as much data as we can and as much as possible. So get your wheels spinning about all the different things that are here. There are really close to endless possibilities when we are using breach data. So that's it for this video, and that's it for this section. I will catch you in the next section.